When the fire dragon plunged into the sea of flames, everyone's expressions changed at once. Sha-Yi, Luoji frowned and called out. By right, Sha-Yi was of the fire god race, he should not fear magma in the slightest. Yet, after the fire dragon fell into the lava, he never emerged again. Luoji fixed his gaze on Su Zimo. He couldn't see through this man at all. Smiling faintly, he asked, "May I have your name, friend? Even if I told you, you wouldn't know it." Su Zimo replied, turning his head. "This matter ends here." "Very well, I'll give you some face." Luoji nodded. Then he looked toward Lu Huahua and said, "Huahua, stop being so willful. You'll be mine sooner or later." After saying that, he paid her no more attention and instead turned his eyes toward the 9 dragons coiling in the heavens. "How boring!" Basya shrugged helplessly. With no good show to watch, he naturally lost interest. "Thank you," Lu Huahua said softly to Su Zimo and the others. "Consider it even," Su Zimo replied. "Since you just opened that inn, we'll call it square." "Why would Miss Lu offend Luoji?" Zhang Hengji asked, puzzled. Luoji's reputation wasn't for his strength, it was that people said he was a complete madman, even somewhat deranged. "How could I possibly provoke him? It was our fathers," Lu Huahua said helplessly. "They made a childhood marriage pact between us." "Your father really did you dirty then?" Su Zimo chuckled. After all, who could predict someone's nature once grown? Childhood betrothals were the worst trap of all. Lu Huahua said nothing more. She sighed. "All I can do is avoid him as long as I can. But if that day truly comes, I'd rather die than let him have his way." Su Zimo didn't comment further. After all, it was her family matter. His gaze turned toward the heavens. The 9 dragons hidden within the blood-colored void finally revealed themselves. 9 blood-red dragons emerged, their might vast, their dragon power rolling like thunder, roars shaking heaven and earth. They swam through the void and ultimately converged together. At the point where the 9 dragon heads met hovered a golden dragon pearl. 9 dragons saluting heavens. "I'm going to try," someone shouted. He leaped into the air, his aura surging like a rainbow. Standing before the dragons, he unleashed all of his might. But the dragons remained utterly motionless, as if they didn't even see him. "This can't be," the man said bitterly. "Not even one dragon's recognition?" Unwilling but helpless, he could only descend. "I'll try," said Xiao Lianian, who had spoken earlier. He stepped into the sky, his own body radiating dragon-like pressure that reached the heavens. Coming from Red Dragon City, his cultivation methods were somewhat related to dragonkind. Now, standing before the 9 dragons, the 9 enormous heads turned toward him. Their emotionless eyes stared into his. Then, 5 consecutive dragon roars echoed out. 5 divine dragons acknowledged him. "What a pity," Xiao Lianian said with a slight shake of his head, seemingly unsatisfied with the result. Seeing his display, others naturally wanted to try as well. One after another, countless people rose into the sky, but only a few received any dragon's approval. "How could I, Luoji, miss out on such fun?" Luoji laughed loudly and leaped upward. The flames surrounding him were the 9 beacon departure fires, like battle fires that could burn the sky itself. Red-violet flames bursting wildly, scorching even the void to nothingness. Above him, the fire dragons stirred. 5 dragons descended from the heavens, circling him in acknowledgement. Luoji spat to the side, clearly still dissatisfied. "Since Brother Luo has tried, how could I, Basya, fall behind?" Basya also strode into the air. Behind him, his flames took the shape of a Qiongqi, a ferocious mythical beast. The Qiongqi roared toward the sky, flames surging from its body, its presence stronger than anyone else's so far. From the heavens came the roar of the 9 dragons once more. This time, 6 divine dragons broke away from the group, circling around Basya. It was the greatest number of approvals yet. Luoji's face darkened. Someone nearby exclaimed, "Basya truly lives up to his name as a genius of Stone Flame City." That city is one of the strongest in the Chaos Fire God realm. 6 Dragons' approval. He's sure to become a saint sovereign one day. Basya descended calmly, ignoring the chatter. Instead, his gaze turned to Shangguan Xian, a glimmer of affection flashing in his eyes. He smiled and said, "Miss Shangguan, won't you give it a try? With your talent, you might just set a new record." Shangguan Xian smiled faintly. With her veil and flowing robes, she carried a soft, ethereal beauty. "I don't care about records," she said. "But the 9 dragons saluting heavens does pique my curiosity." Her long sleeves fluttered as she stepped into the air. The ribbons around her body danced in the wind. Shangguan Xian truly was exceptional. Her flames were of the immortal spirit fire, infinitely stronger than Luo Ji's 9 beacon fire. That immortal fire made her seem otherworldly, like a celestial being untouched by mortal dust. Her immortal fire flowed into the group of dragons. With each step, white lotus flowers bloomed beneath her feet, creating a radiant path of lotuses across the sky. This time, the dragons reacted with intensity. 7 divine dragons broke away, circling her. 7 dragons! People below gasped in awe. Envy, admiration, jealousy, all emotions stirred among the crowd. Yet Shangguan Xian frowned slightly, seemingly still dissatisfied. The immortal fire around her flared even brighter, her body emanating a power both pure and untainted. It was a unique physique, her long black hair flowing, her celestial aura illuminating the 9 dragons above. Of the 2 remaining dragons, one suddenly opened its eyes and rushed toward her. Now 8 divine dragons surrounded her in total. Still, Shangguan Xian seemed unsatisfied, though there was nothing more she could do. Gracefully, she descended from the sky. "Miss Shangguan truly deserves the title of fairy," Basya praised. 8 dragons. You'll surely become a sage monarch one day. Yes, yes, to witness such talent today, we are truly humbled." Others echoed, flattering her from every side. "Would young Master Su like to give it a try?" Lu Huahua asked, looking at Su Zimo. She had a feeling he was far from ordinary. "No need. If I caused the 9 dragons saluting heavens to stir, and all 9 acknowledged me, wouldn't that make these so-called geniuses lose face?" Su Zimo said with a casual smile. The moment his words fell, a cold snort came from nearby. It was Basya, clearly displeased. Su Zimo hadn't bothered to lower his voice, so it was only natural others heard him. "This young master certainly talks big," Basya sneered. "Even Miss Shangguan only received 8 dragons recognition. You think you could get 9? Save that talk for the children you're trying to impress." Su Zimo looked at him calmly, unbothered. "Do you want to bet on it?" "Bet on what?" Basya asked. "Bet your life," Su Zimo said with a smile. "Absurd." Basya was stunned for a moment, then sneered. "You clearly have no confidence in yourself and want to use this to scare me off. Do you think Basya, would be afraid?" "You don't dare," Su Zimo asked in return. "This kind of provocation is meaningless." Basya shook his head. "As for betting lives, my life is far more valuable than your worthless one." "So you admit you're not sure you can win?" Su Zimo smiled. "In that case, shut your mouth." Basya's face flickered between dark and pale as he glared at him. He glanced at Shangguan Xian and found that she too was watching with curiosity. Snorting coldly, he said, "Fine, a bet it is. As if I'd be the one to back down." After he spoke, Basya looked at Su Zimo and said, "Please, go ahead. I'd love to see how you make the 9 dragons bow to heaven." Su Zimo sighed and shook his head. "There are too many self-proclaimed clever people in this world." He stepped into the air, one step at a time, his aura unremarkable, like that of an ordinary mortal. Standing beneath the 9 dragons, he simply raised a hand and said calmly, "Come forth, dragon." This guy's insane. Does he think the dragons will come just because he says so? Someone laughed. "Just wait and see how he dies. Basya is the young lord of Stone Flame City. This kid's asking for death. Serves him right. Just a human brat, daring to act so arrogant in Fire God race territory. He clearly looks down on us. The crowd murmured and mocked, but Su Zimo paid them no attention. He stretched out his hand. The others couldn't sense anything, but Shang Guanxian's eyes suddenly sharpened. In that instant, it felt as if the entire world had changed. All 9 dragons opened their eyes at once. A vast dragon might surged across heaven and earth, accompanied by wave after wave of dragon roars. This time, the movement of the 9 dragons was fiercer than ever before. "Look!" someone shouted in shock, pointing at the sky. The golden dragon pearl encircled by the 9 dragons burst forth with endless radiance. The 9 dragons circled tightly around Su Zimo, descending in a posture of reverence and submission. The sight left everyone dumbfounded. Especially Xia, his eyes flickered violently, and his face turned deathly pale. "So this is the 9 dragons saluting heavens," Zhang Hengji muttered in awe. "They say that since this phenomenon first appeared, only the Chaos Fire progenitor himself was ever recognized by the 9 dragons. I must apologize, young Master Su. These old eyes failed to see your greatness. He's too low-key. Even I didn't expect this." Lu Huahua agreed, nodding slightly. "It's not over yet," Shang Guanxian suddenly said from the side. "This is more than just 9 dragons." "What do you mean?" Before anyone could ask further, a new dragon roar echoed from within the golden dragon pearl itself. The sound grew louder, shaking the sky. From within the pearl, a golden dragon tore through the void and emerged. "That's the Violet Gold Dragon Emperor," someone shouted in disbelief. "You must be joking. The Violet Gold Dragon Emperor is supposed to be a creature of legend. How can it truly exist?" The Violet Gold Dragon Emperor had 8 claws, and its entire body gleamed with purple gold light. Its scales were perfectly arranged, gleaming with divine brilliance. Its gaze was majestic, and its body was larger than the 9 other dragons combined. Its long, winding form encircled Su Zimo, and the massive dragon head bowed before him in submission. "You want me to take you with me?" Su Zimo said with a faint smile. All the world revered dragonkind, but Su Zimo understood that dragons were merely one branch of the 16 beast races. Most of the dragons that roamed the world today were impostors, false dragons. Only the primordial dragon bloodline truly represented one of the 16 beast races. "This one must have sensed my beast compendium," Su Zimo realized inwardly. He said aloud, "You're too weak. What benefit do I get from taking you? Should you command it, our lives, all 9 of us, belong to you," said the Violet Gold Dragon Emperor solemnly. It had cast aside all pride, wagering even its life. It clearly saw greatness in Su Zimo. "Well, better than nothing," Su Zimo said, taking the dragon pearl into his hand. These dragons were only at the peak of the God Meridian realm, and the Violet Gold Dragon Emperor itself was merely a Grand Emperor. If they weren't at least Saint Sovereign, Su Zimo didn't find them impressive. He had to admit he was starting to feel a bit conceited. As he pocketed the dragon pearl, the dragons roared in unison before transforming into streaks of light, all merging back into the pearl. Su Zimo descended slowly, landing on the cliff's edge with the dragon pearl in his hand. "Young Master Su, you?" Zhang Hengji was so stunned he didn't even know what to say. "What?" Su Zimo asked, puzzled. "You actually subdued the divine dragons?" Lu Huahua was the first to voice the question everyone had. "I didn't really want to," Su Zimo said with a sigh, "but they were insistent on following me. What could I do but accept?" He looked so helpless it almost seemed pitiful. "If you don't want them, you could just give them to me," Lu Huahua said after a long pause, unable to hold back. She thought Su Zimo was showing off, but faced with what she just witnessed, she couldn't even refute him. "You're called Xia, right?" Su Zimo finally turned his gaze toward him. "About our bet, what do you say now?" "This friend," Xia said with narrowed eyes. "Why not let bygones be bygones?" "I knew you'd chicken out," Su Zimo said with a shake of his head. "Why don't you just call yourself Turtle instead? It suits you better." At those words, Baxia's face twisted in humiliation. Anywhere else, he would have torn Su Zimo to pieces. But with so many watching, if he backed down now, his reputation would be destroyed forever. I did agree to bet my life, Baxia said coldly. But I never said I'd kill myself. My life's right here. Come and take it. A smug look crept onto his face. If you can't, don't blame me for breaking my promise. No matter, Su Zimo said flatly. Your death is certain either way. He tossed the dragon pearl lightly into the air. Here's your chance to show what you can do, he said. Dragon roars filled the sky. The 9 divine dragons surged out, surrounding Baxia completely. Baxia was no weakling, though only an early Grand Emperor. He wasn't someone mere god Meridian dragons could easily harm. His imperial aura erupted, shaking the heavens. Behind him, his Chongqi manifestation materialized in full form, clashing head-on with the dragons. Today's humiliation, I, Baxia, will remember it, he roared. But I won't waste any more time with you. He turned to leave, hoping to end things quickly before the situation worsened. But Su Zimo clearly had no intention of letting him go. The violet gold dragon emperor shot out, blocking his path. Su Zimo tightened his grip on the dragon pearl, a powerful artifact in its own right. Without even channeling its power, he hurled it like a stone. Under his immense strength, the pearl smashed into Baxia with crushing force. Though Baxia struggled to block it, the impact tore through his defenses, piercing straight through his body. The dragon pearl pierced straight through Baxia's body. Taking advantage of his weakness, the violet gold dragon emperor grabbed him with its claws and hurled him violently into the magma below. The crowd stared at the bubbling lava, waiting for a long time, but Baxia never resurfaced. Could he really be dead? Someone asked uncertainly. Impossible. Baxia is a grand emperor. How could ordinary magma harm him? Another replied in disbelief. Yet no matter how long they waited, Baxia did not appear again. Only Su Zimo knew the truth. Beneath that magma, he had set up a spatial gate connected to the god world. Both Sha-Yi and Baxia had been drawn into it, likely now serving as food for the blue man. Su Zimo yawned, feeling his interest fading. He turned to Zhang Hengji and the others and said, Let's go back to the inn. Better to get some sleep than waste time here. You killed Baxia, Lu Huahua said, her flushed face turning pale. Was I not supposed to? Su Zimo asked. His father is the Lord of Stone Flame City, Lu Huahua sighed. He'll never let you go after this. Then I don't mind sending his father to join him, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Since enmity had already been formed, sparing Baxia would have changed nothing. His enemies would never forgive him anyway. As Su Zimo prepared to leave, Shangguanxian walked toward him, her steps light and graceful like lotus petals upon water. Greetings, fellow cultivator, she said with a soft laugh. What do you want? Su Zimo asked. Shangguanxian slowly removed the veil that had covered her face. The sight stunned everyone. She was like a peony about to bloom, beautiful but not gaudy, radiant yet pure. Her face was oval, her nose slender and elegant, her cherry lips pale as rosebuds. Her skin was flawless, white as snow. Tiny star-shaped earrings hung from her ears, and her long black hair cascaded down her back, tied loosely with a blue ribbon. May I ask where you come from? She said gently. A man of such talent can't possibly be unknown. Her voice was soft and clear, like the call of a songbird, delicate yet melodious. Just a nameless wanderer, unaffiliated, Su Zimo said casually. At that, a flash of light passed through Shangguanxian's eyes. With a hint of shyness, she said, Would the young master consider joining our divine crow god realm? There are many cultivation matters I'd love to consult you about. Her demeanor was demure, her beauty almost inviting. But Su Zimo suddenly reached out and pinched her cheek, hard. Shangguanxian froze, taken aback. The two stood close, and she hadn't expected him to be so bold, to act without warning. Little girl, don't try to use your charm techniques on me. Su Zimo said flatly. You're still far from capable. Shang Guanxian's expression darkened as she quickly took a step back to avoid another touch. You misunderstand me, young master, she said with a faint smile. I merely wished to recruit you. Recruit me? Su Zimo laughed, as if he'd heard the greatest joke in the world. Even the overlord of the Radiant Court wouldn't dare recruit me. What is your divine crow god realm compared to that? Just a mangy bird with half its feathers missing. Your words are too much, Shang Guanxian said coldly, her smile fading. You're lucky, Su Zimo said evenly. If I didn't find you somewhat interesting, I might have ended you on the spot. He turned away. Perhaps you think I've gone too far, but I'm only speaking the truth. With that, he waved his hand and left with Zhang Hengji and the others. Shang Guanxian stood in place, watching his departing figure, deep in thought. Senior sister, should we? One of the women beside her made a throat-slitting gesture. Investigate first, Shang Guanxian said, shaking her head. She couldn't see through Su Zimo at all, and she never acted without certainty. Otherwise, for that single touch on her cheek, she would have killed him without hesitation. Back at the inn, Su Zimo told everyone not to disturb him. He returned to his room alone, eager to enter the god world and check on Blue Man's progress. How is he? Su Zimo asked upon arrival. My lord, he indeed feeds on fire god race, Paimon said with a nod. I fed him those two from before, and his laws have strengthened considerably. He hasn't awakened yet? Su Zimo asked. No. It's like a bottomless pit. I can't tell how many of the fire god race he'll need to consume before he wakes, Paimon replied. How strange, Su Zimo murmured. A creature that feeds on the fire god race. What exactly is he? My lord, Paimon said. I have a theory. The Blue Man and the fire god race might not truly be enemies. Oh, Su Zimo raised an eyebrow. Why do you say that? The Blue Man feed on the fire god race, Paimon explained. But as you said earlier, those of the fire god race who consumed even a drop of his blood lived 100 years longer. It feels reciprocal. He continued thoughtfully. The Blue Man consumed them, but the fire god race covet his power just as much. If word of Blue Man's existence spreads, the entire fire god race will hunt him down. My lord must keep this secret. That makes sense, Su Zimo nodded. I understand. He observed the growing strength of the creature's laws, then sat cross-legged to meditate and comprehend. He needed to prepare for his heavenly tribulation. For Su Zimo, tribulation was nothing to fear. Most saint sovereigns faced near-certain death during theirs. One wrong move and their cultivation would fall, sometimes never to rise again. But Su Zimo was different. He could simply face his tribulation within the god world itself. Did the heavenly Tao of that realm dare to strike him? He meditated the entire night, murmuring to himself, It's close. I can feel it. Just one final step. Leaving the god world, he returned to his room. Today was the third day, the day they were to enter the Chaos Fire God realm. When he stepped outside, Zhang Hengji and the others were already waiting. Finally, you've been in seclusion for 3 days. If you hadn't come out soon, I was going to kick down your door, Zhang Hengji said. Lu Huahua added, The envoy of Chaos Fire is coming today. I know a few inside details, I'll fill you in. Her father was a guardian of the Chaos Fire God realm, so Su Zimo didn't doubt her. After 3 days, the area surrounding the Chaos Fire God realm was packed with people, hundreds of billions, as far as the eye could see. Heads crowded together, an ocean of cultivators. Many were from other regions, not just the Chaos Fire God realm, all hoping to take advantage of the opportunity. Above the magma field, clusters of fire lotuses bloomed in the air. The Chaos Fire envoy appeared again, stepping into the sky. His aura was immense, his gaze cold and authoritative as it swept across the gathered masses. He said indifferently, Now I will announce the rules. Those entering the competition, remain where you stand. Spectators who are not participating may take the fire road to the right and enter the Chaos Fire God realm directly. As soon as he finished speaking, more than half of the crowd split off and began heading toward the fire road. In truth, there weren't that many real participants in the competition. Most of the crowd were merely spectators. This was a grand event for the younger generation of the Chaos Fire God realm, a chance to determine the strongest among them. It was a rare spectacle, one that might not occur again for centuries. So it wasn't surprising that countless people had gathered to watch. Once the bystanders had left, only a few hundred true competitors remained. The Chaos Fire envoy swept his gaze over the group of contestants and said calmly, "Along the path to the Chaos Fire God realm, 2 trials have been set up. They're not particularly difficult, just meant to weed out those who are unworthy or here to take advantage." Though his words sounded light, no one dared to relax. The qualification to reach the origin of the fire ancestor was far too important. No one could guarantee they wouldn't meet disaster along the way. Everyone was ready to give their all, like lions fighting rabbits, still going full force. From the celestial mortal holy lands, Zhang Hengji would be participating, so he temporarily entrusted the sect's disciples to Lu Huahua's care. "Master Su," Zhang Hengji said with a smile, "you have a great chance this time to win a high placement and bring some honor to us humans." "What about humans?" Su Zimo asked, puzzled. "You might not know," Zhang Hengji sighed, "but this Inferno Crucible heaven ultimately belongs to the fire god race. Humans have a low status here. When our sect's grand emperor ancestor founded the celestial mortal holy lands, his purpose was to create a safe haven for the human race. But now the sect has declined, and I feel ashamed before our forebears." "Every person has their own fate," Su Zimo replied. "It's the same for races. Nothing lasts forever." "That may be true," Zhang Hengji said. "But in all my years among humans, you are the most gifted genius I've ever seen. Perhaps one day, we'll have another saint sovereign among us." Su Zimo only smiled and said nothing. The human race had nothing to do with him. Zhang Hengji carried a strong sense of racial loyalty, but Su Zimo didn't. He looked up at the Chaos Fire envoy, who had already finished his speech and was now pointing toward the mountain pass ahead. "You may depart whenever you're ready," the envoy said. "You have 3 days. Anyone who fails to reach the Chaos Fire God realm within that time will be disqualified." With that, the envoy left, and the contestants began forming small groups, racing toward the mountain top. Su Zimo, not knowing many others, chose to travel alongside Zhang Hengji. Unexpectedly, Shang Guanxian appeared and followed after them. "Master Su, we meet again," Shang Guanxian said with a gentle smile. She wasn't wearing her veil today, and her breathtaking beauty drew countless sidelong glances. "Oh," Su Zimo replied with a brief nod, acknowledging her presence. He didn't believe he was so charming that a single glance could make her infatuated. If she insisted on following him, she clearly had some ulterior motive, and Su Zimo hated trouble the most. "The first trial on the path is the Forest of Blazing Fire," Shang Guanxian said, sharing what she knew. "There's no shortcut for this one. The forest is filled with flame trees, plants that even devour members of the fire god race. You humans must be especially careful." Zhang Hengji listened intently, nodding from time to time. Su Zimo, however, was unconcerned. The flame of Zhurong he wielded was the ancestor of all fire. Why would he fear this? When the group arrived at the so-called Forest of Blazing Fire, they saw before them a vast jungle. The massive trees grew from pools of molten lava, their trunks a deep, glowing red. There wasn't even solid ground to stand on. Flames crackled and hissed all around. Even from a distance, Zhang Hengji could feel his skin burning, his blood seeming to boil inside his veins. "Let's meet on the other side of the forest," Shang Guanxian said with a smile, then stepped directly onto the magma, walking gracefully forward. The lava didn't seem to burn her at all. Encased in a glow of celestial flame, she moved lightly and elegantly, almost ethereal in her poise. Though she appeared delicate, each step carried her far ahead. Inside the blazing forest, countless flame trees began to stir, twisting and writhing. They attacked any who came close. Some participants were caught off guard, struck down into the lava and instantly devoured. But most managed to advance safely. The fire god race really has the advantage here, Zhang Hengji sighed. Sword energy surged around him, and a massive heavenly sword appeared at his back. Leaping into the air, he flew on his sword, cutting through the sea of flames with sheer power. Every flame tree that came near was instantly cleaved in two. Meanwhile, deep within the Chaos Fire God realm, inside a vast and imposing hall, the Grand Chamber radiated authority and power. More than a dozen figures sat within it. At the highest seat was a man shrouded in crimson mist. Only his voice revealed that he was male. The others around him were also cloaked in thick red robes, their faces hidden from view. One must admit, a voice finally said, breaking the silence. This time's selection has produced some fine young talents. Indeed, another replied. Several cities have promising seedlings, worth watching. They represent the hope of our Chaos Fire God realm. There's also another matter, someone said. The young lord of Stone Flame City has been killed. I doubt Blade Tyrant will let that go. Who killed him? Apparently a human youth. Blade Tyrant won't forgive that. Does he really intend to spill blood within our Chaos Fire God realm? Let's observe for now, the crimson-shrouded figure at the head said calmly. At his words, the entire hall fell silent again. Everyone turned their attention toward the front, where the void projected a live image of the forest of blazing fire. Su Zimo had no desire to show off. The flames here couldn't harm him in the slightest. So instead of dodging, he simply jumped straight into the lava, walking leisurely through it as though taking a swim. The tens of thousands of degrees of heat didn't even make him flinch. That guy, one of the contestants murmured, narrowing his eyes. Even the fire god race couldn't endure such flames for long, so how could a human? Passing through the molten river and into the heart of the fiery forest, Su Zimo found the flame trees trying to attack him as well. He responded with a single burst of fire that burned them all to ash. By the time he emerged from the forest, fewer than 50 participants had been eliminated. Some of them were simply too weak to continue. Zhang Hengji and Shangguan Xian were already waiting for him on the other side. You look more like a fire god race member than we do, Shangguan Xian teased. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. What's the second trial? He asked. The Heart Flame Trial, Shangguan Xian said seriously. How does it work? Su Zimo asked. The Heart Flame Trial burns the soul itself, she explained. If you can endure it, you pass. If not, your soul will be reduced to ashes. The Heart Flame Trial tests the cultivator's very soul, Shangguan Xian said with a faint smile. If you're not confident, don't attempt it. There's no turning back once you start. Su Zimo looked over at Zhang Hengji. Among the three of them, Zhang Hengji was the weakest in strength. Don't worry, Zhang Hengji replied with a grin. I may not be the strongest, but I have a firm Tao heart. I don't fear the so-called heart flame. The so-called heart flame was, in truth, a bridge, one suspended between two cliffs, stretching toward the mountain peak. Flames danced all along it, purple and ghostly, as if countless twisted faces writhed within the fire. By the time the three arrived, others had already begun crossing. Some faces twisted in agony, their pain beyond description. A few were engulfed by the flames, reduced to nothing but ash. But some walked steadily, unaffected, striding straight across. Oh, by the way, Shangguan Xian said with a sly smile, glancing at Su Zimo. There's a piece of news you might find interesting. What news? Su Zimo asked. The city lord of Stone Flame City has come to the Chaos Fire God realm, she replied. At that, Su Zimo understood. The man had come to avenge his son. And what's this so-called city lord's cultivation realm? Su Zimo asked. You really want to know? Shangguan Xian teased. Join our divine crow god realm, and I'll make sure the city lord never troubles you again. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and turned to Zhang Hengji. He's probably a sovereign lord, Zhang Hengji answered. The lords of the cities beneath the Chaos Fire God realm are all at least grand emperors. Stone Flame City's lord is among the stronger ones. Then that's no fun, Suzimo said calmly. He had hoped to capture a fire god race Saint Sovereign for Blue Man to study. The three stepped onto the fire bridge. The moment Suzimo set foot on it, his vision changed. An endless purple sea of flames surged toward him, threatening to engulf his entire being. Suzimo's gaze turned sharp, demonic light flashing in his eyes. When he opened them again, the sea of fire vanished. But behind him, flames continued to burn, as though feeding on his very soul. The heart flame seemed to consume one's spirit like fuel. The more it burned, the fiercer it grew. He glanced at his two companions. Both seemed to be facing the same illusion. Shangguan Xian recovered quickly, her eyes regaining clarity in an instant. Zhang Hengji took a bit longer, but eventually broke free as well. Let's hurry across, Zhang Hengji urged, his voice tense. The intensity of the fire had far exceeded his expectations. His entire body ached as though it were being torn apart. His vision blurred from the pain. As they moved, Suzimo asked casually, "Who holds power over the Chaos Fire God realm now?" "Of course, it's the Fire Ancestor," Zhang Hengji replied. "Even though the Chaos Fire progenitor is no longer here, the new generation of the Fire God race remains powerful. Among the 7 fire realms, our Chaos Fire God realm ranks in the top 3. You've seen the water beasts, haven't you?" Suzimo asked. Zhang Hengji shook his head, but Shangguan Xian's expression darkened. "I went to the Departure Fire God realm once. It's already been overrun by water beasts." Suzimo fell silent, lost in thought. If the water beast disaster in Firebane City had been caused by the Blue Men, then what about the others? Were there more of them out there? And where had they come from? He had no answers yet, only questions. He would have to wait until the Blue Man awoke to learn more. As they continued along the bridge, a sharp whistling sound broke through the air. 3 figures approached at incredible speed, their blue robes fluttering behind them. As they neared, the 3 suddenly launched an ambush, 3 curved blades flashing toward Suzimo. Clang, clang, clang. Suzimo punched out, shattering all 3 blades. The assassins didn't falter. Flames erupted from their bodies as they attacked from 3 different directions. Suzimo frowned slightly. Their strength wasn't impressive, too weak to pose any real threat. Why send such people to kill him? He lifted his right leg and kicked. Boom! The entire void trembled, the air rupturing into a gaping rift. The 3 assassins were swallowed whole, their bodies vanishing into nothingness. Just then, Shangguan Xian seemed to realize something. "Watch out!" she shouted. Even as her words fell, the bodies of the 3 assassins began to glow red. A terrifying heat built up within them, like a volcano about to erupt. In the next instant, they exploded. Boom! The blast was so powerful it shattered the bridge itself. Flames surged skyward, engulfing Suzimo completely. His silhouette vanished in the inferno, leaving only fire raging through the void. Shangguan Xian and Zhang Hengji had reacted fast enough to escape. Since the attackers had only targeted Suzimo, the 2 were unharmed. "What just happened?" Zhang Hengji asked in shock. "They were fire whites," Shangguan Xian said grimly. "It's said that some factions secretly cultivate them. They're like living bombs, deadly zealots who cultivate forbidden self-destruction arts. When their cultivation reaches its limit, their bodies can't contain the power and explode." Her expression darkened further. "That technique was originally created by one of our fire god race's ancestors. He made a mistake in his cultivation, and this cursed art was the result. Later, certain forces began using it to breed fire whites in secret." "Who could have done this?" Zhang Hengji asked. "This must have been a planned assassination." "I don't know," Shangguan Xian said, shaking her head. "That technique has long been forbidden. But the only one Suzimo has truly offended is Stone Flame City. They certainly have the power to cultivate fire whites. But without proof, we can't accuse anyone outright." Both of them stared intently into the molten depths below. An incident like this, especially during a trial, was a direct provocation to the Chaos Fire God Realm's authority. Surely the overseers wouldn't stay silent. Zimo! Shangguan called out toward the molten sea. Just then, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned quickly, only to find Su Zimo standing right behind her, perfectly unharmed. Zimo, you're all right? Shangguan said with visible relief. A mere assassination like that won't kill me, he said, shaking his head. Let's go. We should reach the Chaos Fire God Realm first. He didn't say it aloud, but in his mind, Stone Flame City had already been marked for destruction. Some people, it seemed, were far too eager to meet their end. The three reached the mountain's summit, where a crimson vortex swirled above a platform. This was the entrance to the Chaos Fire God Realm. Without hesitation, they stepped into it. The world spun violently, and when they opened their eyes again, they found themselves in a different realm altogether. Rather than calling it a particle world, it would be more accurate to say that this place existed beneath a vast sea of molten lava. Endless magma stretched as far as the eye could see, like an ocean of fire, and the Chaos Fire God Realm had been built within it. Strangely, despite being surrounded by molten rock, no one seemed affected by the heat. Even Zhang Hengji, a human, could stand there comfortably, only feeling a faint stuffiness, not true scorching heat. For the Fire God race, this is indeed an exceptional place to live, Su Zimo remarked. It's nice, but still a bit inferior to our divine Crow God realm, Shangguan said with a slight smirk. That's not quite right, Zhang Hengji replied, chuckling. I've been to the divine Crow God realm. Sure, it's built within the body of the divine Crow itself, but since the divine Crow's death, your flames have grown weaker and weaker. Sooner or later, you'll be surpassed by the Chaos Fire God realm. These volcanoes here will never go out. So what? Shangguan countered playfully. For now, we're still stronger. Her tone held pride. She clearly felt a strong sense of belonging to the divine Crow God realm. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been trying so hard to recruit Su Zimo. Young Master Su, my offer still stands, she said teasingly. You can join the divine Crow God realm anytime you wish. Let's first take a look at how the competition's shaping up, Su Zimo replied, turning his gaze across the vast expanse of the Chaos Fire God realm. The world was immense, filled with strange and wondrous flame-born trees, grand towers that floated in the air, and countless powerful fire-type beasts roaming freely. Beneath the molten surface lay towering halls and temples. The entire realm glowed crimson, its architecture varied and untamed, built according to the will and temperament of its inhabitants. This was the Chaos Fire God realm, a place remarkably tolerant of all races. As they walked down the main streets, Su Zimo noticed members of many different races mingling freely. In other cities, the Fire God race tended to look down on outsiders, not out of personal malice, but because within the Inferno Crucible heaven, the Fire God race carried an innate sense of superiority. Still, Su Zimo thought to himself, if they ever left this heaven, humans would teach them humility soon enough. In the 9 heavens, humanity was the most numerous, and not lacking in power either. The Myriad Flames Tower has posted the rankings. Let's go check them out. The tower's lists are rarely wrong. Once we see the ranking, we'll know how to place our bets. Crowds surged forward, all heading in the same direction. Su Zimo and Zhang Hengji didn't quite understand what was happening, so Shangguan explained with a grin. The Myriad Flames Tower is an intelligence organization. Practically anything that happens in the Chaos Fire God realm they know about. Even the Chaos Fire God realm relies on them for information sometimes. Whenever a major competition is about to take place, the tower gathers intelligence and releases a ranking list, predicting who's most likely to win. She smiled again. Whenever those big events happen, the gambling houses go wild. Everyone checks the rankings before placing their bets. It gives them confidence. Now that sounds interesting, Su Zimo said with a chuckle. Let's go have a look. Agreed. Zhang Hengji nodded. Let's see what kind of geniuses this Chaos Fire God realm has. Maybe we'll even see your name on it, Miss Shangguan. or yours, young Master Su? What about Lin Huahua and your disciples? Su Zimo asked. They went to find an inn, Zhang Hengji replied. We'll meet them there tonight. Su Zimo nodded. The Myriad Flames Tower stood in the very center of the main street, prime location, and massive in scale. Its insignia depicted several spiritual flames converging into one emblem of fire. Before the grand entrance hung a massive crimson scroll, the Myriad Flames ranking. The tower itself had 13 floors, and the scroll hung from the 3rd floor all the way down to the ground. It listed a full 100 names. By the time Su Zimo and the others arrived, a huge crowd had already gathered. At the very top of the scroll, 3 golden characters blazed brightly. Myriad Flames ranking. Below them, the names followed. 1st place, Xiao Anshan. 2nd place, Spectral Prince. 3rd place, Army Breaker. The list was long. Su Zimo scanned down until he saw Shangguan Xian's name, ranked 12th. Given her background and strength, that surprised him. Even Zhang Hengji was puzzled. But Shangguan Xian only smiled. The Chaos Fire God realm is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Honestly, this ranking is higher than I expected. This 1st place, Xiao Anshan, who is he? Zhang Hengji asked, frowning. He had never heard the name before. He knew the Chaos Fire God realm fairly well and recognized most of the other names. But this Xiao Anshan, he had no memory of him at all. Do you remember what happened 100 years ago in your Chaos Fire God realm? Shangguan Xian reminded him. What do you mean? There was a child born that year, she said softly. When he came into the world, the heavens trembled, and a sun descended from the sky, fusing into the child's brow. As soon as she spoke, Zhang Hengji's eyes widened in recognition. That event hadn't only shaken the Chaos Fire God realm. It had caused an uproar across the entire Inferno Crucible heaven. But the sensation had faded as quickly as it came. Within days, no one spoke of it anymore. The child disappeared from public view. Could it be? Zhang Hengji began. Yes, Shangguan Xian confirmed. That child's name was Xiao Anshan. He was taken in by the Chaos Fire God realm and raised here. They've been cultivating him ever since. His strength now is formidable, very likely already at the Grand Emperor Realm's God Unity stage. Then we have no chance, Zhang Hengji sighed. That son must be some kind of special physique, right? Exactly, Shangguan Xian replied. You've heard of the old Chaos Fire progenitor, haven't you? He possessed one of the 10 God King physiques, the Primal Chaos God King physique. But the Fire God race, being obsessed with flames, refined that physique even further into what's now known as the Primordial Flame God King physique. If I'm not mistaken, she continued, Xiao Anshan was born with that very physique, the Primordial Flame God King physique. As they finished discussing, Su Zimo suddenly smiled. So, are you two going to place any bets? Bet on Xiao Anshan? Zhang Hengji asked. His odds are too low. Even if he wins, there's no real profit. Bet on me? Su Zimo said, still smiling. Zhang Hengji froze for a moment. He knew Su Zimo was strong, astonishingly so, and he had great faith in his future. But this confidence, so casually stated, still caught him off guard. I believe in young Master Su, Shangguan Xian said with a grin. Then I'll bet on you too. To her, the wager itself didn't matter. But earning Su Zimo's goodwill, that was worth far more than gold. The Chaos Casino was the largest casino in the entire Chaos Fire God realm, and it operated under the protection of the Chaos Fire God realm itself. Everything conducted here was legitimate and carefully regulated, so people could place their bets with full confidence. By the time Su Zimo and his companions arrived, the place was already packed. After the release of the Myriad Flames ranking, the betting frenzy had multiplied several times over. How much are you two betting? Zhang Hengji asked with a grin. Realm Lord, don't say I didn't warn you, Su Zimo replied with an easy smile. Bet everything you have on me. I promise you'll walk away with a fortune. Hearing this, Zhang Hengji couldn't help but frown slightly. Where did Su Zimo get such confidence? This tournament gathered the most elite prodigies of the Chaos Fire God realm, young geniuses of extraordinary talent. Even figures like Shangguan Xian, hailing from other god realms, were no slouches. Even Xiao Anshan himself probably didn't have absolute certainty of victory. And Su Zimo, while clearly gifted and full of potential, hadn't yet displayed power on that same level, or so Zhang Hengji believed. Su Zimo could tell what Zhang Hengji was thinking just from his expression, but he didn't bother to explain. Believe it or don't, he thought. It makes no difference to me. After some thought, Zhang Hengji finally sighed and said with a bitter smile, "Young Master Su, I've trusted my instincts all my life, and they've rarely failed me. I'll bet on you this once. If I lose, then it's just my bad luck." Su Zimo nodded with a grin, and then shouted toward the interior of the casino, "Hey waiter, come here a moment. What can I do for you, sir?" A busy maid asked, hurrying over. "Get your manager. Tell him I want to place a bet," Su Zimo said calmly. "Sir, if you're betting, please join that line. Our staff will assist you," the maid explained politely. "I'm placing a large bet," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "I doubt your clerks have the authority to approve it." The maid hesitated, eyeing Su Zimo carefully. Something in his bearing made the man uneasy, and after a moment's hesitation, he nodded and went inside. Not long after, an elderly man emerged from the inner hall and approached with measured steps. "Young sir," the old man said respectfully, "I am the manager of this Chaos Casino. You mentioned a wager. Let's find a quieter place to talk," Su Zimo replied. The old man nodded, and the two entered a private chamber. Half an hour later, Su Zimo walked out again, the old manager personally seeing him off with a beaming smile and a deferential bow. "You two finished betting?" Su Zimo asked his companions. Shangguan Xian and Zhang Hengji both nodded. "Then let's go," Su Zimo said casually as he left the gambling hall. Once outside, Zhang Hengji couldn't contain his curiosity. "What exactly did you bet on? That old man looked downright eager to please you." Su Zimo smiled faintly. "I've destroyed a few imperial sects before. I just used their treasure vaults as collateral for the wager." Zhang Hengji's jaw nearly dropped. "What a waste," he groaned. "With that kind of wealth, you could have founded your own sect. Why squander it like this?" "I bet on myself to win," Su Zimo said with a grin. "If I really do, imagine how much the Chaos Casino will owe me in return." Zhang Hengji felt his breath catch. That kind of wager, if Su Zimo won, the casino might have to pay out more than his entire fallen celestial mortal holy lands was worth. He could only shake his head. Su Zimo's way of doing things was beyond his comprehension. "When does the Chaos Fire God realm say the tournament begins?" Su Zimo asked. "Tomorrow," Shangguan Xian answered. "By then, young Master Su, you'll be famous throughout the entire Chaos Fire God realm." "I don't care about fame or rankings," Su Zimo replied, shaking his head. "How many slots are there for the Chaos Fire God realm?" "3, Shangguan Xian said. "The top 3 competitors will qualify to enter the Fire God race's ancestral lands." The group returned to their inn, where Lu Huahua had already booked rooms for the disciples of the celestial mortal holy lands. "Be careful these next few days," Lu Huahua said the moment they arrived. "What's wrong?" Zhang Hengji asked. "We're being watched," Lu Huahua said quietly, glancing around. "People from Stone Flame City?" Su Zimo asked. After all, that was the only faction he had openly offended recently. "I'm not sure," Lu Huahua replied. "But it's better to be cautious, especially with the competition so close. We can't afford any slip-ups." "All right, everyone get some rest," Su Zimo said with a wave of his hand. "We'll be fine." Each person retreated to their own room. Su Zimo sat cross-legged in meditation. The moon disappeared behind clouds, and the night deepened into pitch-black silence. The once bustling streets outside slowly fell quiet. But near the inn, several shadowy figures lingered, more than a dozen men in black robes, hidden in the dark corners. "Lord City Master, shall we make our move?" One of them whispered. "Send someone to test him first," came a cold voice from the shadows. "Remember, kill only Su Zimo. No innocents." Otherwise, the Chaos Fire God realm will never let this slide. Understood. Another voice replied darkly. A figure stepped out from the nearby residence and joined the waiting assassins. You, the shadowy leader said, pointing to one of them. You'll go first. Test his defenses. The chosen man nodded. He stepped into the air and silently glided toward Su Zimo's window. Landing lightly on the windowsill, he crept the window open and slipped inside. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Still no sound. The men below frowned. Something's wrong, one muttered. All of you go in. I want him alive if possible. Dead or alive, we must confirm. Yes, sir. More than a dozen black-robed figures shot up into the air and vanished into Su Zimo's room. The single assassin who remained outside waited anxiously. Another 10 minutes crawled by. Still no sign of movement, no noise, nothing. His expression hardened, eyes narrowing. He turned to leave, but just as he spun around, he froze. Su Zimo was leaning casually against a nearby tree, smiling faintly at him. You took so long. I got tired of waiting, Su Zimo said lightly. I had to come down myself. Shame, it seems the big fish didn't show up. Your city master isn't here. This has nothing to do with the city master, the black-robed man stammered. Doesn't matter, Su Zimo said with a faint grin. He reached out casually and the assassin tried to flee, but it was useless. An overwhelming force pressed down on him, pinning him in place. A moment later, Su Zimo threw him directly into his god world. These should be enough to help me break through to Saint Sovereign, Su Zimo thought silently. He entered the god world himself, where the dozen captured fire god race assassins now lay bound before Blue Man. Mystical energy surged around Blue Man's body, drawing the fire god race men toward him as if they were iron filings pulled by a magnet. One by one, the assassins were consumed. At that moment, the power of edicts manifested around Blue Man again, rippling through the realm. Su Zimo sat cross-legged, eyes closed, beginning his comprehension of those edicts. As time passed, his aura grew stronger and stronger. Above the skies of the god world, thunderclouds had already begun to gather. Thunder surged. The once calm heavens now seemed to rage with the fury of a thunder god. Su Zimo was in a strange, transcendent state. A mysterious aura surged around him, identical to that of the blue figure nearby, as if the two were about to merge. His momentum grew heavier and more powerful by the moment. Above, the gathering thunder tribulation had reached its critical peak, ready to strike at any instant. What's happening to the master? Asked Sevenface, eyes wide. This is the tribulation. Master is about to advance to Saint Sovereign, Paimon said excitedly. He's grasped enlightenment. We must guard him, he added solemnly. At this time, no disturbance can be allowed. The other infernal archons nodded in agreement, surrounding Su Zimo in a tight circle so not even a fly could get through. Su Zimo felt as if he were drifting between worlds, immersed in a realm of pure law. The first stage of the Saint Sovereign realm was known as Supreme Giant. Those who attained it stood at the peak, transcendent, sovereign, and supreme. He was now stepping into that domain. Inside his body, spirit energy churned violently, and his 10th meridian gate began to tremble. It was as if an ocean's worth of power was crashing against a dam, trying to burst through. Normally, cultivators use divine arts to impact their meridian gates, only comprehending primal Tao after entering the Saint Sovereign realm. But Su Zimo was different. His sea of primal Tao itself was what hammered against the gate. Boom, boom, boom. Deafening sounds came from within his body. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. The force of this impact was immense, enough to injure his organs, but such damage was nothing new to him. That blue figure beside him was born of pure primal Tao power, and through its presence Su Zimo had gained even deeper insight into the primal Tao themselves. He remained calm and unhurried. Breaking into the Saint Sovereign realm was no easy feat. Better to take it slow than to err. Time and again, he controlled the ocean of primal Tao inside him, crashing it against the meridian gate. Even as blood soaked his insides and his organs shattered, he persisted without hesitation. No one knew how long it took, perhaps hours, perhaps days. His mind grew numb, all thoughts fading away until only the instinct to break through remained. A sharp crack echoed. Inside, the 10th meridian gate fractured like glass, covered in fissures and about to shatter completely. Now was no time to stop. Su Zimo poured all his strength into one final surge. Thunder roared inside his body. The ocean of primal Tao erupted in a flood, and with one last push, the meridian gate broke open completely. The sea of primal Tao poured into it, filling and transforming it. Su Zimo's power rose sharply. His inner world expanded. Within his sea of consciousness, his life-death soul, condensed once before from the spirit of the violet mist Saint Sovereign, now glowed brilliantly. Having stepped into the Saint Sovereign realm, he could now form another life-death soul. As the 10th gate opened, a second one began to take shape, radiant and divine. Su Zimo had no intention of hiding his soul. Many said that as long as one's life-death soul survived, a Saint Sovereign could never truly die, but he knew better. His enemies were far beyond that level. If someone truly wished to kill him, no hiding place would protect him. So instead, he decided, why not forge two? With twin souls, he could become an invincible Saint Sovereign. And with his countless trump cards, who could truly say who would fall in the end? He slowly opened his eyes. A trace of saintly might flashed in them. Supreme Giant, he murmured to himself. I finally reached this step. The power coursing through him was dozens of times stronger than before, and still climbing. Master, congratulations on reaching the Saint Sovereign realm, Paimon and the others said with smiles. It's nothing, Su Zimo replied calmly. The road ahead is long. I'll only feel secure when I reach infinite Tao. By the way, he asked suddenly, how long was I in seclusion? 1.5 days, Paimon replied. Normally, others take 3 to 7 days to break through. But this is the God world. Everything bends to your will. With no heavenly tribulation and no cosmic interference, your success was guaranteed. I wonder how far the tournament has progressed, Su Zimo muttered. He left the God world and returned to his room in the inn. Morning light streamed through the window. The sky was already bright. Outside his door, Lu Huahua and the others stood waiting anxiously. When Su Zimo finally opened the door, they all sighed in relief. My ancestor, if you hadn't come out any sooner, they'd have disqualified you, Lu Huahua exclaimed, grabbing his arm. Come on, we have to hurry, you might still make it. It's already started? Su Zimo asked. It started long ago, she said, nearly dragging him along. You set up a barrier on your room. I couldn't open it. I had no choice but to wait. Su Zimo remembered setting the ward. He'd known he was on the verge of advancing, so he had sealed the room to avoid interruptions. Where's Holy Lord Zhang? He asked. He's already there. His match was scheduled early, Lu Huahua replied. You're lucky. Your turn is later, so it's fine if you're late. The two rushed toward the central arena of the Chaos Fire God realm. Deep beneath the molten landscape, the arena was vast beyond measure, a world of blazing magma and hovering platforms. Where's Su Zimo? A voice shouted from the stage. If he doesn't appear now, he'll be disqualified. Even from a distance, Su Zimo and Lu Huahua could hear the announcement. There he is, Lu Huahua called, waving. Just in time. As Su Zimo walked toward the platform, all eyes turned to him. In such an important tournament, every other competitor had arrived early. For someone to arrive late was unheard of. He's putting on quite the act, someone muttered. His opponent is Yen Dao, right? Just showing off, another sneered. Probably a one-round elimination. The referee's expression darkened when Su Zimo finally reached the stage. I'll let it go this time, he warned coldly. But if you're late again, you'll be disqualified. Su Zimo stepped onto the arena. Meanwhile, in a vast palace floating in the void, a group of red-robed figures watched the match through a projection. "So that's the youth who killed Basya?" one asked. "Blade Tyrant destroyed the Bridge of Heartfire just to assassinate him?" another murmured. "We'll discuss Blade Tyrant's case later. We don't have proof," said a third. "For now, the competition takes priority." "Let's observe him first," said the elder at the head. "If he shows no potential, then Blade Tyrant's death is no great loss." Su Zimo's opponent was Yen Dao. He wielded a massive chained cleaver. His entire body radiated the aura of the blade, sharp, fierce, and cutting through the air itself. Simply standing there, he was like a sword thrust into heaven and earth, exuding an edge so sharp it was hard to look at him directly. He wore a long purple robe. When he saw Su Zimo enter the arena, his eyes snapped open, and a suffocating murderous intent surged across the battlefield. Su Zimo yawned lazily, looking at him with disinterest. "The match begins," the referee shouted from below. The instant the words fell, a streak of razor-sharp blade energy shot into the sky and came slashing straight toward Su Zimo. "That's the Yen Imperial clan's blade technique," someone in the audience said. "It's said that the Yen Imperial clan once produced a Grand Emperor. This blade technique was first created by their ancestor and later refined by that very emperor. It must have reached the level of an imperial-grade technique by now," another spectator remarked with admiration. Having a powerful lineage truly was a blessing. The massive blade slashed through heaven and earth, shattering the void itself, transforming into countless afterimages that surrounded Su Zimo. "Using a blade in front of me?" Su Zimo smiled faintly. He extended his right hand, and a surge of powerful blade energy erupted outward. Instantly, Yen Dao's countless blade auras froze, and then, as if recognizing their sovereign, they became gentle, swirling obediently around Su Zimo. Yen Dao's expression changed drastically. He tried to regain control of his blade energy, but it no longer responded to him at all. "Perhaps there are some in this world qualified to wield a blade before me," Su Zimo said softly. "But you are not one of them." He flicked his hand. Countless blades burst forth simultaneously. In an instant, the entire arena was engulfed by a sea of blades, infinite and boundless. In the midst of that raging ocean of blade energy, Yen Dao was caught at the center. "Referee," Su Zimo asked calmly, "is killing allowed here? Fists and weapons have no eyes." "Do as you wish," the referee replied coldly. "No!" Yen Dao roared, sensing that Su Zimo would show no mercy. From his storage ring, a flash of light burst out. A massive shield appeared before him, glowing with power. Holding the shield with both hands, he bellowed, "Open!" With a thunderous boom, spiritual light erupted from the shield, forming layers of radiant defense that blocked the storm of blades before him. The shield's overwhelming power surged forward, transforming into a wave of energy that crashed towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo frowned slightly, then smiled. "That must be your ancestor's weapon." Indeed, the Yen Imperial clan's Grand Emperor had once left behind a massive shield. "Enough talk! Die!" Yen Dao roared, charging forward with the shield, attempting to crush Su Zimo beneath its might. Su Zimo snorted coldly. At his fingertips, a sliver of blade energy condensed. With a flick, he sent it flying. To everyone's astonishment, that tiny thread of energy, no larger than a finger, expanded midair into a colossal heavenly blade. Its size grew 100-fold in an instant. The titanic blade cleaved through the arena, shattering the ground and tearing open the void itself. Winds howled violently, the air distorted, and the spectator's vision was completely obscured. Amidst the roar of destruction, a cracking sound echoed, followed by a scream swallowed by the storm. When the winds finally subsided and the dust settled, the crowd stared in utter shock. The arena was a ruin. The massive shield lay shattered into several pieces, discarded like broken scrap. Yen Dao's body was unrecognizable, bloodied, mangled, lying motionless in a pool of blood. Silence blanketed the field. Su Zimo smiled mildly, his expression harmless. "Referee, You can announce the result now. Oh, right. The referee jolted back to his senses. This match, Su Zimo wins. Su Zimo stepped down from the arena calmly. This time, no one dared to look down on him. There were too many participants on the first day. Half would need to be eliminated, so Su Zimo only fought once that day. His next match was scheduled for the following morning. Have you two already fought? Su Zimo asked Shangguan Xian and the others. Shangguan Xian nodded. At the start, most opponents are weak. The further you go, the stronger they get. They glanced briefly at the other matches, but seeing the uneven strength of the contestants, they quickly lost interest. Back at the inn, a familiar face was waiting for them in the first-floor hall. Lord Bien, Su Zimo greeted. The man waiting was none other than the Black Crow Dao Court's master, Bien Wenzhou, the Black Crow Emperor. Master Su, Bien Wenzhou said with a laugh as he rose to his feet. I was delayed by some matters on the road. My apologies for arriving late. I thought your Black Crow Dao Court wasn't coming, Su Zimo replied. How could that be? You're representing our Fire Bane city, after all. Bien Wenzhou smiled. I heard you killed the son of Blade Tyrant, the city lord of Stone Flame City. He lost fairly, Su Zimo said evenly. Skill issues, that's all. That old man is petty, Bien Wenzhou chuckled. His son was born late in life, and he dotes on him endlessly. He'll surely try everything to stop you from competing. But don't worry, I came here precisely to deal with that. Whether you came or not, the result would be the same, Su Zimo said bluntly. True enough, Bien Wenzhou said with an easy laugh. But you're fighting on behalf of Fire Bane City. If I did nothing, people might say I'm ungrateful. Where's Bien Shisher? She didn't come? Su Zimo asked. That girl, I can't control her, Bien Wenzhou said with a shake of his head. Su Zimo said nothing more. He had just broken through to the Saint Sovereign realm and wasn't yet fully accustomed to the new power. He needed time to stabilize his cultivation. After dinner, he returned to his room. He cultivated through the night until morning. A knock on the door roused him. Master Su, time to go, Lu Huo's voice called. Su Zimo opened the door to see Bien Wenzhou and the others downstairs eating breakfast. Care for some? Bien Wenzhou asked with a smile. No. Su Zimo shook his head. He looked out the window toward the street and murmured, The sky looks gloomy today. What? No way, it's sunny outside, Lu Huo said cheerfully. The others simply smiled faintly and said nothing. After breakfast, the group headed toward the tournament arena. But as soon as they reached the middle of the main street, something felt wrong. The road, normally bustling with life, was eerily silent. Not a single soul was in sight. Shutters were closed tight on both sides, and the air was still, save for the occasional gust that stirred a few fallen leaves. They're here, Su Zimo murmured softly. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed. From both ends of the street, dozens of black-robed figures emerged. They didn't speak a word. Their leader gave a low command. Kill! Instantly, they all charged forward. Zhang Hengji was about to act, but Bien Wenzhou stopped him. You all go to the arena, Bien Wenzhou said with a grin. Leave this small matter to me. He clapped his hands lightly. Suddenly, explosions erupted in rapid succession. The once silent and deserted shops on both sides of the street burst open as their doors were kicked apart. Dozens of figures rushed out. Seeing them, the black-robed men surrounding the area froze in surprise. Clearly, they hadn't expected this ambush. It seems Lord Bien was prepared. Zhang Hengji exhaled in relief and smiled. That Blade Tyrant wanted revenge. Since he couldn't kill you outright, his plan must have been to delay you from reaching the arena. And the perfect place for that would be along the road to the tournament. Bien Wenzhou laughed. Exactly. When I first arrived in the Chaos Fire God realm, I already stationed people in advance. Didn't I tell you? You only need to focus on your matches. Leave everything else to me. Then we'll trouble you with this matter, Lord Bien, Zhang Hengji replied with a smile. He knew full well that Bien Wenzhou's help was truly for Su Zimo's sake. Still, they were all ensarled in this mess because of Su Zimo, so there was no reason to complain. The ambushers clashed violently with the black-robed assassins. Meanwhile, Bien Wenzhou led Su Zimo and the others leisurely toward the arena. Though this danger has passed, Bien Wenzhou said, that blade tyrant has clearly gone mad. Otherwise, he'd never dare attack you so brazenly in public. You'd best stay alert. Lord Bien, Su Zimo asked, can you locate blade tyrant's whereabouts? Why? Does young master Su want to settle things once and for all? Bien Wenzhou asked, amused. Blade tyrant can't truly harm us, Su Zimo replied. But he's like a buzzing fly, endlessly annoying. Better to crush him outright and be done with it. Blade tyrant is extremely cautious, Bien Wenzhou explained. Notice that in everything he's done, he's never appeared in person. First, he fears failing and dying at your hands. Second, he worries the Chaos Fire God Realm will punish him if he's caught. I can't find him so easily. And although the God Realm hasn't formally investigated yet, it's better not to stir up trouble while you're still competing. Then find him as soon as possible. Once you do, inform me, Su Zimo said, waving his hand dismissively. As they walked toward the arena, they passed by the Myriad Flames Tower. After a full day of matches, the Myriad Flames ranking had shifted again. Originally, Su Zimo's name hadn't even appeared. But now, after just one fight, his name was listed, ranked 56th. Considering his performance, that wasn't surprising. The ranking changes were only near the bottom of the list. The top 20 remained untouched. Clearly, the tower still had confidence in its top contenders. These fools are blind, Lu Huahua snorted. In my opinion, young Master Su should at least be in the top 3. Let's go. Talking about it won't change anything, Su Zimo said, waving her off. This match is Xiao Anshan's. Come on, let's watch. How many moves do you think he'll need to win? I'm guessing 1. His last opponent went down in a single strike. His opponent this time is Qiluan, the one they call the Young Fire God. Better show some respect. I'll say 2 moves at least. When Su Zimo and the others reached the arena, the crowd was already buzzing with anticipation. Miss Shangguan, your match is second in line. You'll be up soon, Zhang Hengji reminded her with a smile. Shangguan Xian nodded slightly. This one's Xiao Anshan's fight. We can watch first. Let's see how much strength the young fire god can draw from him. On the stage, a man in a cyan robe slowly walked up. He had sharp brows and clear eyes, his features finely chiseled, handsome, almost to the point of perfection. His face had a refined elegance, yet there was an edge of strength beneath it. A few strands of hair fluttered lightly in the breeze. At his waist hung a long sword made of white jade. Just by standing there, he seemed to become the center of the world, commanding every gaze. Men looked at him with envy and resentment. Women stared with fiery admiration. Xiao Anshan stood calmly on the platform. Opposite him came the sound of heavy footsteps. A young man wearing a sleeveless red vest, his fiery red hair bristling like flames, and muscles bulging across his body, strode up the steps. His temper was as fierce as his appearance. The moment he stepped on stage, he shouted, "Xiao Anshan, everyone fears you. They say you'll take first place. But in my eyes, you're nothing but trash. The real number 1 will be me, the young fire god." Facing the provocation, Xiao Anshan remained composed, smiling faintly. Being called first is merely a courtesy from others. The Chaos Fire God realm is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. I've never thought of myself as unbeatable. At least you know your place, the young fire god snorted. Then please, brother fire god, enlighten me, Xiao Anshan said politely. Fire Dragon God Fist, the young fire god shouted. A wave of blazing flames burst from his body, taking on the shape of a dragon. As he punched, a dragon's roar echoed through the air. The blow distorted space itself, filling the arena with searing fire. Yet Xiao Anshan stood unmoving, as steady as a mountain. He extended his palm and reached straight toward the young fire god. A thunderous impact followed. His massive hand caught the young fire god's fist squarely. In that instant, all of the opponent's force, all the roaring flames, were completely extinguished. It was like a tiny spark snuffed out by a torrential rain. The young fire god's face changed. "Break!" he roared, and his flames flared even stronger. But Xiao Anshan's hand held firm. No matter how violent the outburst, he remained utterly calm. "Enhanced Fire Dragon Fist!" the young fire god shouted again. Veins bulged on his forehead, his arms trembling as his blood surged violently. At last, Xiao Anshan moved. Under the raging firestorm, his figure began to step back slightly. "You're impressive," Xiao Anshan said calmly. "Your fire isn't powerful, but it's pure. Your Tao heart is resolute. You'll achieve great things someday." "Don't talk to me like some elder," the young fire god roared furiously. "Either beat me or shut your mouth." "As you wish," Xiao Anshan replied, withdrawing his right hand. A torrent of blazing fire erupted from his body. "Then I'll grant your wish." As he raised his hand, a vast sea of fire appeared behind him, its sheer pressure suffocating. He struck once more, and the fire surged forward like an ocean wave. "Damn it!" the young fire god bellowed, trying to resist. But his figure was like a lone boat in that fiery sea, helpless, instantly swept away. With a thunderous boom, the fire subsided. The young fire god's body crashed outside the arena. "Because your Tao heart is pure, I'll spare your life," Xiao Anshan said quietly. The young fire god stood there, face dark with frustration. After a long silence, he exhaled deeply. Perhaps he'd come to terms with his defeat. He bowed respectfully to Xiao Anshan, then turned and left. As the battle ended, the spectators around the arena broke into discussion. Some marveled at Xiao Anshan's strength. Others admired his restraint. Though he could have easily killed the young fire god, he chose to spare him. Xiao Anshan showed no pride in victory. He simply clasped his hands in a polite salute to the crowd and stepped down calmly. The second match began, Shangguan versus Wang Yong. As the announcement sounded, Shangguan gave a slight nod towards Su Zimo and the others, then walked up to the platform with composed grace. Wang Yong's name was obscure. Few seemed to know who he was. Shangguan, however, was well known. She came from the divine crow god realm, and even within that powerful territory, her name was recognized far and wide. As she stepped onto the stage, a wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. "She's from the Shangguan heavenly clan, isn't she? Why would someone from the divine crow god realm come compete here in the chaos fire god realm?" "I've heard a few rumors," one man said. "Not sure if they're true. Let's hear them." "They say Shangguan talent is remarkable. In most clans, she'd be considered a prodigy. But unfortunately, she was born into the Shangguan heavenly clan." "What's wrong with that?" "From what I know, the Shangguan heavenly clan is the top family of the divine crow god realm. Talent, resources, power sounds ideal to me." "You don't get it. Shangguan has an older sister named Shangguan Waner, and she's the real genius. Since childhood, she's overshadowed Xian in everything. It's said that whenever the clan has any opportunities or resources, they all go to Waner. The whole Shangguan heavenly clan treats her as the future Saint Sovereign. So that's why. No wonder Shangguan came here. She must be trying to leave her family's shadow and carve her own path." The audience buzzed with gossip. Su Zimo and Zhang Hengji, who had spent some time traveling with Shangguan, realized this was the first they'd heard about her past. She rarely spoke of herself, and they had never pried. "Miss Shangguan's life hasn't been easy," Zhang Hengji said, half believing the rumors and sighing softly. "In this world," Su Zimo replied calmly, "just living is already difficult." His gaze returned to the arena. There, Shangguan and Wang Yong were already facing each other. Flames of immortal energy burned around her body. Every movement she made carried tremendous power. Her strikes shattered the air itself. With a light step, she launched into the air, her kick landing squarely on Wang Yong's head. She completely dominated him. After a few quick exchanges, her right hand burst with flame, and Wang Yong's body was sent flying across the stage. That final strike could have killed him, but she pulled her strength back at the last instant, sparing his life and only leaving him gravely injured. The winner, Shangguan Xian, the referee announced. Meanwhile, in the Chaos Fire God realm, the red-robed officials were watching the matches through projected images. One of them said, "This Shangguan Xian is worth cultivating. But isn't she from the Divine Crow God realm? Could that be a problem?" Another asked. In the Inferno Crucible heaven, only the Radiant Court stood above the rest. The others, though all part of the Fire God race, had rivalries and grudges among themselves. None wished to appear weaker than another. The Fire God race was far from united. If it had been, the water beasts wouldn't still be ravaging their lands after all these years. Back when the Departure Fire God realm was destroyed, if the other God realms had lent aid, how could it have fallen so easily to the beasts? "For now, let's keep her under observation," one elder said. "If there's no issue, we can consider training her later." "She's impressive," another added, "but still a step below Xiao Anshan. In my opinion, this tournament's champion will definitely be him." The others laughed in agreement. Their hopes for Xiao Anshan were high, and his recent progress had indeed justified their confidence. After descending from the platform, Shangguan Xian returned to the group. Several more matches followed, but Su Zimo and Zhang Hengji's turns hadn't come yet. As Shangguan Xian rejoined them, Zhang Hengji couldn't resist asking about the rumors. Shangguan Xian smiled lightly, unfazed. "They're mostly true. I do have an elder sister, Shangguan Wan'er. Ever since we were young, she's always been ahead of me in everything. No matter how much I improved, I could never catch up." "You came to the Chaos Fire God realm to prove yourself, to surpass her?" Su Zimo asked. "Something like that," Shangguan Xian replied with a small laugh. "Honestly, I was tired of life in the Divine Crow God realm. I came here to clear my mind." "I believe you'll surpass your sister one day," Zhang Hengji said sincerely. "Enough, Holy Lord Zhang. I know myself better than anyone," Shangguan Xian smiled. "Now it's your turn to fight." Zhang Hengji turned. The referee was already calling his name. He laughed and stepped toward the arena. "Zhang Hengji versus Spectral Prince. Why did you spare Wang Yong?" Su Zimo asked. "Why should I kill him?" Shangguan Xian countered. "On the arena, every fight is to the death," Su Zimo replied evenly. "But of course, that's your choice." "From the moment I met you," Shangguan Xian said softly, "I could tell, you carry a heavy killing aura. You kill without hesitation, like when you slew Basya. The path I walk is one paved with blood," Su Zimo said. "The path of killing leads nowhere," Shangguan Xian sighed. "If you keep walking it, you'll only destroy yourself. Destruction brings rebirth." Su Zimo smiled faintly. "And rebirth is just another path." "You know," Shangguan Xian said, "when we first met, I actually wanted to recruit you, to have you fight by my side. Later, I realized how foolish that idea was. Last night, I met someone. I wasn't going to hide it from you." "Bian Shirshir?" Su Zimo asked. "You know?" Shangguan Xian was taken aback. "Bian Wenzhou came. She must have followed," Su Zimo replied calmly. "She just doesn't know how to face me yet, so she keeps running." "I'm her friend," Shangguan Xian admitted. "She asked me to help to persuade you to kill less. Sometimes killing isn't necessary. Many things can be solved without it." "Don't try to change me," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. "Why not?" Shangguan Xian pressed. "Look at the arena," Su Zimo said quietly. "Zhang Hengji's about to die." Shangguan Xian froze. She'd been so focused on talking to Su Zimo that she hadn't been watching the match. When she looked up again, her expression changed drastically. Zhang Hengji's opponent was none other than Spectral Prince, ranked third on the Myriad Flames list, a top contender from the Spectral Valley and one of the tournament's favorites to win it all. "How could this be?" Shangguan Xian said in shock. "Tell me," Su Zimo said. Do you think pairing Spectral Prince with Zhang Hengji was just a coincidence? Or did someone arrange it on purpose? Shangguan Xian hesitated. It should be a coincidence, right? This is the Chaos Fire God Realms tournament. No one would dare cheat so blatantly. In this world, Su Zimo replied with a faint smile, if the benefits are high enough, any line can be crossed. If Zhang Hengji dies, he asked, should Spectral Prince be killed? I suppose he should, Shangguan Xian answered uncertainly. Zhang Hengji was a decent person. Though they hadn't known each other long, he was still half a friend. Then what about the referee who arranged this match? Su Zimo continued. Should he be killed too? And what about the person who bribed him behind the scenes? Should they also die? Su Zimo asked one question after another. Shangguan Xian was at a loss for words. If she said yes, that would contradict the very argument she had made to Su Zimo earlier. But if she said no, would Zhang Hengji's death just be meaningless? She was torn between the two. Meanwhile, on the arena, Zhang Hengji was already covered in blood, his body battered and broken. Spectral Prince practiced a ghostly demonic art. Whenever he struck, spectral wails and deathly energy surrounded him. It was as if countless vengeful spirits encircled his body. Even those watching from below could feel the bone-chilling cold. Zhang Hengji, on the other hand, was a pure sword cultivator. His aura was sharp and upright. His essence wielded the sword, and the sword carried his will to pierce the heavens. Unfortunately, his strength was still lacking. Spectral Prince had already reached the second stage of the Grand Emperor realm, the Void Tribulent stage. Zhang Hengji, by contrast, was still struggling at the God Meridian realm. They weren't even on the same scale of power. Spectral Prince could have killed him with a single blow, but he didn't. Instead, he toyed with Zhang Hengji like a predator savoring its prey. Sword descends upon void, Zhang Hengji roared. A sky-splitting sword strike fell from above, tearing through space itself. But Spectral Prince merely reached out and grabbed it. The tremendous sword intent shattered in his palm. Someone paid a handsome price for your head? Spectral Prince said with a cruel grin, his voice overlapping with the echoes of countless ghostly whispers. In an instant, his form blurred and reappeared right in front of Zhang Hengji. Grabbing him by the collar, he sneered, I don't need the money. I just enjoy watching people die slowly, especially my opponents. The agony before death, that's what truly feels good. Zhang Hengji was drenched in blood, too weak to even speak. Spectral Prince laughed maniacally. He held Zhang Hengji up with one hand, while the other became a hammering fist, smashing repeatedly into Zhang Hengji's chest. The sound of impact, bang, 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 echoed through the arena. Blood splattered everywhere, flesh torn open. Some spectators couldn't bear to watch any longer and turned their faces away. Finally, Spectral Prince seemed to tire of it. Spirit energy gathered around his right fist, and with one last devastating blow, he sent Zhang Hengji flying across the stage. At this point, Shangguan Xian finally said, let's stop debating and go check on Holy Lord Zhang. Su Zimo didn't argue. In truth, he knew, without rules or restraint, most people's nature would turn toward evil. Too many still imagined this world to be better than it really was. The two approached Zhang Hengji. He lay in a pool of blood, barely clinging to life. Even his breathing was faint, almost imperceptible. Lu Huahua stood frozen in shock, while the disciples of the celestial mortal holy lands surrounded their fallen master, sobbing uncontrollably. If you want your holy lord to live, Su Zimo said, waving his hand, step aside. He gently moved the crying disciples out of the way. Shangguan Xian knelt beside Zhang Hengji and checked his condition. After a brief examination, she sighed. Unless there's a heaven-defying elixir, there's no saving him. See, Su Zimo said calmly, your kindness is admirable, but your ability to act on it is pitifully weak. He grasped Zhang Hengji's wrist and released his life force. Su Zimo possessed the Tree of Life, and he had inherited the legacy of the wood god Jumuang. In healing arts, as long as the soul hadn't yet entered the netherworld, he could bring someone back. As the life force poured in, Zhang Hengji's color gradually returned, and a faint breath stirred in his chest. Take care of the celestial mortal holy lands. For me, Zhang Hengji murmured weakly in his unconscious state. Even on the brink of death, his only concern was for his sect, and the young disciples who still depended on him. The disciples wept harder. It'll be better if you take care of them yourself, Su Zimo said. Gradually, Zhang Hengji's breathing steadied. Su Zimo stood up. Let him rest. Don't disturb him for now. Then he turned toward the arena, his gaze cold and steady. Spectral Prince was walking down from the stage, looking thoroughly pleased with himself. Is Holy Lord Zhang going to be all right? Shangguan Xian asked. He'll live, Su Zimo replied. His injuries won't heal quickly, but his life is no longer in danger. He spoke with calm detachment, as if saving a life were nothing more than a small errand. Thank you, Shangguan Xian said softly. On behalf of his disciples. Su Zimo nodded slightly. Let's make a deal, Shangguan Xian said. What kind of deal? In the coming rounds, no matter which of us faces Spectral Prince, she said seriously. We kill him. Oh, Su Zimo smiled. So now your killing intent is as strong as mine? Have I rubbed off on you? You're right, Shangguan Xian said firmly. Some things can only be solved by killing. Her gaze turned sharp, her tone filled with the same cold fury that Su Zimo often carried. After a while, Su Zimo's own match was announced. His opponent was a young man named Black Flood Dragon. The man's robe was made of crocodile hide. He had long, slanted bangs covering half his face, leaving only one visible eye, an eye that radiated murderous intent so thick it seemed solariable. In his hands he held two short throwing knives, spinning them so fast that even the spectators couldn't see them clearly. That's Black Flood Dragon, someone in the crowd whispered. I've heard of him, another said. Before the tournament started, I didn't know his name, but yesterday he fought a genius ranked 50th on the Myriad Flames list. The guy didn't even last a single move. Black Flood Dragon chopped him into pieces. The listeners fell silent. Clearly, this was another ruthless killer. A man who drew his blade only to kill, wasting no motion, no words. As the referee shouted, "Begin!" Black Flood Dragon's figure vanished into thin air. His speed was incredible. Before anyone in the audience could even register his movement, he was already behind Su Zimo, slashing at his neck. A metallic snap rang out. Su Zimo raised two fingers and caught the knife effortlessly. Black Flood Dragon's visible eye narrowed, its sharpness flaring even brighter. At this moment, Black Flood Dragon appeared particularly calm. When his blade was caught by Su Zimo, he did not struggle for control. Instead, he abandoned the weapon entirely and swiftly retreated. Su Zimo did not pursue. He simply watched him quietly. Black Flood Dragon steadied himself, his gaze sharpening. He had great confidence in his speed and his knife technique, but from that single exchange, he already sensed the strength of his opponent. Men like him, who lived on the edge of life and death, often found that every battle ended one of two ways. Either they killed or they were killed. Without hesitation, Black Flood Dragon pulled out another short blade. With a sharp clang, the two knives crossed in his hands, and a surge of deadly energy split through the air. Su Zimo seemed indifferent. He extended his right hand and crushed the incoming knife energy with his bare fingers. Under cover of that shattered blade light, Black Flood Dragon's figure vanished again. The next moment, 7 or 8 figures of Black Flood Dragon appeared all around Su Zimo. "It's a clone technique?" someone muttered. "No," another voice said, shaking his head. "All 8 have the same aura. They feel like one being, no difference in strength. You can't tell which is real or fake." Su Zimo looked around at the encircling figures and let out a faint laugh. His hands moved like lightning, blocking and countering every strike with ease. The sound of repeated impacts echoed, bang, 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 as the figures were blown away one by one. But just as the last shadow dissipated, a massive dragon-like creature suddenly surged upward. A black-scaled flood dragon roared, its four-clawed limbs tearing through the air, striking towards Su Zimo. Black Flood Dragon, his name matched his nature. He was no human, nor was he of the fire god race. He belonged to the ghost Jiao race, a monstrous lineage born of darkness. The enormous dragon head bellowed in fury, its jaws wide open as it tried to swallow Su Zimo whole. Su Zimo stood unmoving, seemingly frozen in place. In an instant, he was engulfed. On the arena, Su Zimo's figure had vanished. Only the coiling, shadowy form of the ghost Jiao remained, its monstrous aura filling the air like smoke. The winner of this match, Black Flood Dragon. The referee hadn't even finished the sentence when the Flood Dragon suddenly let out a horrific scream, rolling in agony. Its immense body thrashed violently, shaking the entire platform. "What's happening?" someone gasped. After several moments of chaotic struggle, the creature collapsed, completely still. Blood pooled beneath its massive frame. Then, a flash of blade light tore through its chest. Su Zimo emerged from within, drenched in blood, pulling out the beast's torn organs. Among them, a glowing gallbladder. "The dragon's gall," someone whispered. "A powerful tonic." Su Zimo glanced toward the stunned referee. "Well, what are you waiting for?" The referee quickly stammered. "Winner of this round, Su Zimo." Su Zimo stepped down from the arena and tossed the pile of organs in front of the disciples of the celestial mortal holy lands. "Use these to make a tonic broth. Your holy lord is still weak. He needs nourishment." "Thank you," the disciples said hurriedly, bowing. "You let him swallow you on purpose, didn't you?" Shangguan said with a faint smile. "And you even remembered to take the dragon's gall to heal Holy Lord Zhang." Su Zimo waved a hand dismissively. "Just a small thing. Anyway, we've got another round today, don't we?" "That's right," Shangguan nodded. "Half the competitors were eliminated yesterday, so today's matches will be more frequent. After today, only a quarter will remain. The sooner it ends, the better," Su Zimo said calmly. Since they had time before their next match, they found an inn nearby and ordered a meal. A table full of exquisite dishes was soon laid out. Su Zimo looked across the table. "You've met Bian Shishir before," he said to Shangguan. "Do you know where she is now?" Shangguan shook her head with a small laugh. "She's always the one finding me. I could never find her first." Her tone turned teasing. "What exactly is your relationship with her anyway? She seems to care about you. I've known her a long time, and I've never seen her care for anyone." "Our relationship?" Su Zimo thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Let's just say we're old acquaintances. Familiar strangers might be a better term." After chatting for a bit, Su Zimo turned toward Lu Huahua. "And you? What are your plans? Your father's a protector in the Chaos Fire God realm. You can't just wander around with us forever." "I don't want to go back," Lu Huahua said, shaking her head. "If I return, he'll just force me to marry that freak, Luoji." She crossed her arms. "I'll stick with you for now. If you think I'm in the way, this lady will go off on her own." Su Zimo chuckled. "How about this, once the competition ends, if you really don't want to go home, stay with Holy Lord Zhang at the Celestial Mortal Holy Lands for a while." "I'm afraid I'll bring trouble to them." Lu Huahua hesitated. "If Luoji comes after me, I drag their sect into danger." Su Zimo smiled lightly. "Don't worry. Before I leave, I'll help you one last time." "What do you mean?" she asked, startled. "I'll kill Luoji," Su Zimo said simply. "You can't," Lu Huahua said quickly. "Doing that will anger Phoenix Fire City. You're already enemies with Stone Flame City. Don't provoke another one. Even Fire Bane City won't be able to protect you." She still believed Su Zimo's backing came from Fire Bane City. Su Zimo didn't bother to explain. He just smiled and said nothing. After the meal, Zhang Hengji finally woke up. Supported by his disciples, he came to thank Su Zimo personally. "Holy Lord Zhang, you should rest," Shangguan said gently. "It's fine." Zhang Hengji shook his head. I want to see the rest of the competition. It's a rare grand event. Missing it would be a pity. My life was saved. I won't fret over a few wounds. Seeing his determination, no one pressed further. By the afternoon, they judged it was about time and headed back toward the arena. What if we don't run into that spectral prince? Shang Guanxian asked uncertainly. Oh, we'll meet him, Su Zimo said with confidence. How can you be so sure? She asked. Think about it, he said. If someone could manipulate the pairings to pit Spectral Prince against Holy Lord Zhang, do you think they'll let me go untouched? Zhang Hengji was just collateral damage. I'm the real target. Shang Guanxian's eyes widened slightly. His logic was sound and soon proven right. When they arrived, the new battle list had already been posted. There, written clearly for all to see, Su Zimo versus Spectral Prince. Well, Shang Guanxian said with a small smile. You called it perfectly. Confident, Shang Guanxian asked. What do you think? Su Zimo replied casually. I know you're strong, she said. But don't underestimate Spectral Prince. He's the successor of the Spectral Valley. The Spectral Valley is a very unusual place. Though they were originally of the fire god race, they've always sought the power of cold. It's said their ancestor once descended into the 9 hells to seize the spectral flame from the underworld and made it their life flame. And this Spectral Prince, before him, the Spectral Valley already had a successor. But Spectral Prince, after only 10 years of cultivation, defeated that very successor when he was 15 years old and became the new heir. He's been called the most talented successor the Spectral Valley has produced in nearly 10,000 years. Only one in 10,000 years? Su Zimo laughed. He's a bit bloodthirsty, Shang Guanxian admitted. But his power is real. If I faced him, even with all my trump cards, I wouldn't be certain of victory. Your immortal spirit flame isn't any weaker than his spectral flame, Su Zimo said with a smile. Maybe so, she said, returning the smile. Anyway, good luck. As the previous matches ended one by one, the referee finally called out the next pairing. Su Zimo versus Spectral Prince. As the second-ranked contender on the Myriad Flames ranking and one of the favorites to win, Spectral Prince drew massive attention wherever he fought. Especially after his brutal slaughter of Zhang Heng, the sheer cruelty of that fight only made the audience more thrilled. People loved this kind of match, bloody, ruthless, with real life and death on the line. The polite, measured duels were boring by comparison. So whenever Spectral Prince fought, the arena overflowed with spectators. This one's going to be fun, someone said. Let's see who Spectral Prince tortures this time. Hey, isn't that the guy who killed Black Flood Dragon last round? Maybe he'll actually give Spectral Prince a fight. Don't be stupid. Black Flood Dragon was strong. Sure, but nowhere near Spectral Prince's level. My money's still on the ghost. How much did you bet on him, old son? You sound desperate. The man snorted. My entire life savings are on the line. Spectral Prince, you'd better not screw me over. The crowd roared with chatter and laughter. Then Spectral Prince appeared, dressed in crimson robes, grinning wickedly as he stepped onto the stage. His gaze locked on Su Zimo, studying him from head to toe. I just want to see what makes you so special, he said, his tone mocking. What kind of man has a bounty big enough to tempt me? So you took the job? Su Zimo asked lightly. Why would I refuse free money? Spectral Prince sneered. Let's just hope you can last longer than the last one. I didn't even get to enjoy myself before he crumpled. Remember what you just said, Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. Spectral Prince's expression turned cold. The air around him darkened, thick with ghostly aura. A massive white skull erupted from above his head, lunging straight toward Su Zimo to devour him whole. Su Zimo raised his right hand. The strike he unleashed split the air with a roaring wind. A thunderous boom resounded as the skeletal head slammed into him, sending him flying backward. Disappointing, Spectral Prince said, shaking his head with clear disinterest. Then, in the blink of an eye, his body blurred into shadows. Ghostly wails pierced the air as he struck, hundreds of punches within seconds. Su Zimo seemed to have no room to counterattack. Soul-devouring myriad ghosts, Spectral Prince shouted. Behind him, a colossal ghostly phantom materialized, roaring as it opened its maw. A terrifying suction pulled at Su Zimo's body, trying to drag out his very soul. Su Zimo struggled against it, his body trembling under the force. Spectral Prince snorted coldly, channeling even more ghost energy into the phantom. Its hollow eyes flared with ghost fire, burning bright. "It's over," he said, already bored, disappointed by how quickly the fight had gone. But just as the phantom was about to consume Su Zimo, it suddenly screamed, a shrill, otherworldly sound, and exploded into fragments of light. "What?" Spectral Prince's eyes widened as the blast sent him flying. He looked up and saw Su Zimo standing unharmed, the fear on his face replaced by calm indifference. "Fun, isn't it?" Su Zimo said softly, smiling. Spectral Prince narrowed his eyes, realization dawning. You were pretending." He broke off and chuckled coldly. "Good. Now it's interesting. I thought you were just another weakling. Have you ever felt fear?" Su Zimo asked suddenly. "Only others fear me," Spectral Prince said flatly. Before his words even finished, Su Zimo's hand rose. A massive palm formed in the air, its presence so heavy it seemed to consume all surrounding energy. Then, like a collapsing sky, the palm descended. Spectral Prince roared, the white skull manifesting once more above him. Its hollow sockets flared with twin flames as it screamed, thrusting upward to pierce the incoming force. But when the palm struck, the skull shattered instantly. The blow crashed into Spectral Prince's body like a mountain. He grunted, his face turning pale as blood threatened to rise up his throat. He swallowed it down with effort. The force pinned his feet deep into the arena floor. "Kneel," Su Zimo commanded, voice cold. The pressure increased. Bones cracked audibly. Spectral Prince's legs buckled, breaking under the weight. He dropped to his knees with a loud thud. For a moment, the entire arena fell silent. No one could believe what they were seeing. Impossible! Spectral Prince is being crushed. No way, that must be a trick. He hasn't used his full power yet. Find out who that man is. I want every detail about him. Looks like even the Myriad Flames Tower missed one. The Chaos Fire God realm is full of hidden monsters. The stands erupted in noise as disbelief turned into a storm of chatter. Spectral Prince's fury boiled inside him. He had been humiliated publicly in front of the entire domain. Soon he knew his name would be a laughingstock. Rage flared in his eyes as Ghostfire blazed hotter than ever. With a roar, he exploded with energy, shattering the massive palm pressing down on him. Now he was truly enraged. A bloody aura erupted from his body, spreading in every direction. Within that crimson haze, countless corpses appeared, shambling like undead soldiers, their eyes empty. "Kill him," he roared. The tide of corpses surged forward, charging straight at Su Zimo. The undead corpses howled as they charged forth, pouring out from the spreading tide of blood like an endless wave. Spectral Prince snorted coldly and commanded, "Tear him to pieces." Seeing this, Su Zimo only shook his head slightly. These blood-colored corpses were not illusions or condensed from energy. They were real bodies. Every time Spectral Prince killed someone, he refined their remains into his personal army of walking corpses. Among the Ghost Clan, this cultivation method was vicious beyond measure, one that defied the natural order and denied its victims any peace even in death. "Don't worry," Spectral Prince sneered. "You'll join them soon enough. With your strength, being refined into one of my servants wouldn't be a bad outcome." Su Zimo didn't answer. Instead, he waved his right hand. Instantly, the ocean of bloody energy surged toward him. To Spectral Prince's shock, Su Zimo opened his mouth and swallowed it all. Every last trace of blood aura vanished into him. Su Zimo licked his lips. That level of energy? Barely a drizzle. Without that power sustaining them, the undead puppets collapsed to the ground. Their strength had come entirely from the blood energy that was now gone. What did you do? Spectral Prince's face twisted in disbelief. That's impossible. It can't be. There's no such thing as impossible, Suzimo said calmly. You just haven't seen enough of this world's horrors. Blood light spread from his palm as he lifted it. Then, under his control, the fallen corpses stood up once again, this time, obeying him. Let you taste your own tricks, Suzimo said, waving his hand. Kill him. The horde of corpses rushed toward Spectral Prince. Spectral Prince scoffed. I didn't fear you in life. Why would I fear you in death? He pulled out a small bottle from his robe. It was transparent, its surface sealed with the power of time and space. The moment it appeared, those who recognized it blanched in horror. Even the spectators instinctively backed several steps away from the arena. Inside the bottle were several winged insects, golden-winged but dark-bodied, slumbering quietly. At first glance, they looked harmless. But those who knew their true nature understood that they were anything but. It's the ghost-devouring death insect, someone cried. No way. The Spectral Valley actually gave him those? You must be mistaken. What are ghost-devouring death insects? The crowd was split between disbelief and confusion, until an old man stepped forward and explained, his face pale. They're exactly that. I saw one kill my friend with my own eyes. Do you remember when the nation of Tranquil Heaven fell? One night, the entire kingdom vanished, people, plants, animals, buildings all gone. It was later confirmed the ghost-devouring death insects were responsible. That's right. The event shook the world back then. These insects haven't been seen for years. That youth is doomed. I've heard they love to feed on brain matter. They don't kill you quickly. They eat you slowly, piece by piece. Inside the Chaos Fire God realm, several red-robed elders watching the match went pale as well. One of them snorted. Outrageous. The Spectral Valley's getting more shameless by the year. This is a duel, not a massacre, and he's actually using such a monster? That's cheating. But technically, we never said they couldn't use external tools, another elder replied. In any case, we should intervene, a third said gravely. If those ghost-devouring death insects get loose, they could devastate the entire Chaos Fire God realm. After speaking, they all turned to the figure seated at the head of the hall. Only his word could decide. The man at the top was silent for a long moment before he smiled. You're all focused on the insects, he said. But haven't you noticed that young man named Suzimo? In just a few exchanges, he's forced Spectral Prince into such a state that he had no choice but to use those creatures. When did our Chaos Fire God realm last see such a genius? Fire Ancestor, we'll send people to investigate him immediately, one of the elders said. No rush, the Fire Ancestor said, shaking his head. I have a feeling he'll be Anshan's greatest rival. Fire Ancestor, isn't that an exaggeration? Another elder asked with a smile. We trained Anshan ourselves. We know his power well. I can see through Anshan, the Fire Ancestor replied. But this Suzimo, I can't see through him at all. At those words, one of the elders suddenly realized something. Then when Blade Tyrant caused trouble here earlier, and you didn't stop him, was that to test Suzimo? Exactly. But Blade Tyrant was useless. After all this time, he accomplished nothing. The Fire Ancestor's tone remained calm. Let's just keep watching. I want to see how he handles the ghost-devouring death insects. On the arena platform, Spectral Prince looked proud, relishing the fear in the crowd's eyes. He loved that feeling of control. Then his gaze locked onto Suzimo. Your time is up, he declared. He crushed the bottle in his hand. The moment it shattered, the dormant ghost-devouring death insects awoke. These creatures should not have existed at all. They were brought back from the Mirage Tide's heaven itself by the Spectral Valley's old ancestor. When he obtained the Spectral Flame ages ago, he had also captured these insects. They could not die. No matter how many times they were killed or how grievously they were wounded, they would revive endlessly. Their antennae were especially lethal, sharp enough that even a Grand Emperor, once pierced, would have his brain drained and all inner power sealed away in an instant. That was their true terror. You couldn't let them touch you. One sting meant certain death. Kill! Spectral Prince commanded. A dense swarm of insects buzzed into motion, filling the air with an overwhelming whirring as they dove toward Suzimo. Suzimo lifted his hand, and flames burst forth, engulfing the entire swarm in an inferno. The sound of crackling fire filled the arena as the insects burned to ash. But moments later, the ashes stirred, the insects' bodies darkened with death energy, and they all revived, completely unharmed, and this time unafraid of the flames. Give it up! Spectral Prince laughed wildly. The ghost-devouring death insects cannot be killed. They come from the depths of the Mirage Tide's heaven itself. They are deathless. Only an idiot would believe in something like immortality, Suzimo said with a faint smile. Even the ghosts of the Nether Realm can die. What makes you think a few bugs could escape that truth? Suzimo's eyes were deep and calm. Stop deceiving yourself, Spectral Prince snorted coldly. If you could really kill them, why didn't your fire work before? It didn't kill them just now because the flames weren't strong enough, Suzimo replied evenly. It burned their bodies, but not the death energy clinging to them. That's why they could keep reviving. He raised his hand. In his palm, the flame of Zhurong bloomed like a lotus. The scorching flames burned quietly, yet their mere presence was enough to dissolve the surrounding void. When the flame appeared, many members of the fire god race instinctively felt fear. The flame of Zhurong was too powerful. It suppressed the flames within their own bodies the instant it emerged. Who is he? He's clearly not one of us, yet his flame is that strong. How does that fire compare to the solar flame from the Radiant Court? Someone asked. It's hard to say. They haven't clashed head-on, but I'd guess they're about equal. As the crowd murmured, Suzimo sneered softly. The solar flame was impressive, but before the flame of Zhurong, it was nothing but trash. The flame of Zhurong was the origin of all flames. Suzimo wasn't yet sure whether the fire god Zhurong was directly connected to the Inferno Crucible heaven. But one thing was certain, where there was fire, there was a link. Then try it, Spectral Prince said with a twisted grin. Let's see if your fire is stronger, or my ghost-devouring death insects. He was full of confidence in his insects. They had once swept across countless battlefields. Emperors had fallen to them. Suzimo waved his hand, and a sea of fire surged up before him. The endless blaze rolled like an ocean, the flame of Zhurong rising high above it. From among the spectators, a sudden scream pierced the air. Ah! My eyes are burning. Everyone turned in shock. The man had merely stared at the flames for a few seconds before the heat alone scorched his sight, blinding him instantly. Even Spectral Prince began to feel fear. Sweat drenched his forehead. His throat was dry, but he forced himself to stay focused, controlling the death bugs as they rushed towards Suzimo. A crackling sound filled the air. Before the bugs even reached the flames, they spontaneously combusted. When the sea of fire enveloped them, the ghost-devouring death bugs vanished completely. Revive! Revive! Damn you! Spectral Prince shouted anxiously. But this time the bugs were truly gone, burned into nothing. How is that possible? Spectral Prince collapsed to the ground. You must have used some demonic trick. My bugs are immortal. They can't die. Don't you realize how pathetic you look right now? Suzimo said coolly. So this is the so-called prodigy of the Spectral Valley? Pathetic. He let the flame of Zhurong fall from his hand. Spectral Prince tried to flee, but it was too late. The flames consumed him. Aya! His screams echoed chillingly. His entire body became a figure of fire, writhing on the stage, standing up, falling again over and over. The fire burned for a long time. Suzimo controlled it precisely, enough to make the man feel every ounce of agony, but not enough to let him die too quickly. Spectral Prince lunged toward him, face twisted in torment. Kill me. Please, kill me. You like torturing others, don't you? Suzimo asked. Now you can feel what it's like yourself. Those worms were insects. Torturing them was a mercy, Spectral Prince howled. His mind was gone. Maybe so, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. But to me, you're the insect. So my torment is your honor. The crowd fell silent. The packed arena was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. At last, after what felt like an eternity, Spectral Prince was burned alive. How brutal, someone whispered. Spectral Prince was vicious all his life, but today he met someone even crueler. That man is terrifying. I doubt even Xiao Anshan could beat him. The tide of opinion had shifted. Su Zimo had defeated the second-ranked Spectral Prince. Now only one opponent stood before him. Xiao Anshan. Su Zimo walked calmly down from the stage. The crowd instinctively stepped aside, giving him a wide path. Zhang Hengji smiled faintly. He knew Su Zimo had avenged him. With his strength, Su Zimo could have killed Spectral Prince instantly, yet he'd chosen to draw it out. Feeling better now? Shangguan Xian asked with a grin. To meet two true friends in one life, that's my fortune, Zhang Hengji said quietly. Your methods were too cruel, a voice spoke from behind. Su Zimo turned slowly. Xiao Anshan stood there, calm and composed. Even if Spectral Prince deserved death, you shouldn't have tortured and mutilated him like that, Xiao Anshan said. Such actions defy the laws of heaven. Su Zimo looked at him as if watching a fool. Then he chuckled twice and said nothing. Sir, Xiao Anshan continued solemnly, I will defeat you on the stage, fair and square. Oh, Su Zimo waved lazily. And what are you trying to say? I just want you to understand. Life deserves respect. No matter whose it is, it should never be toyed with, Xiao Anshan replied earnestly. You're this naive, and yet you became the Chaos Fire God Realm's heir? Su Zimo laughed. I suppose it's because of your primordial flame God King physique. Otherwise, you wouldn't be spouting these self-righteous speeches. What do you mean by that? Xiao Anshan frowned. To me, good and evil don't matter, Su Zimo said with a grin. Whether it's cruelty or kindness, I follow only one rule. And that is, Xiao Anshan asked. I do what I damn well please, Su Zimo said with a wide smile. Don't preach to me about morals. You've lived too sheltered a life. As Su Zimo walked away, completely dismissive of him, Xiao Anshan's fists clenched tightly. He stood in silence for a long time before finally exhaling slowly. Only the final victor, he murmured, has the right to lecture others. When the day's matches ended, the sky had already darkened. Everyone returned to their lodgings. In the inn's main hall, Bian Wenzhou was already waiting. Today, young Master Su, you truly amazed the entire Chaos Fire God realm, Bian said with a smile. I just checked. The Myriad Flame Tower now lists you and Xiao Anshan side by side at number 1. Tied for first. Su Zimo shook his head and laughed softly. They really have blind faith in this Xiao Anshan. To be ranked alongside him by the Myriad Flame Tower is already an enormous honor, Bian Wenzhou said with a smile. You don't know how much confidence they have in Xiao Anshan. He grew up right here in the Chaos Fire God realm. He has several masters, besides the Fire Ancestor himself. Even the Tower Lord of the Myriad Flame Tower is said to be his teacher. He chuckled. How could the Tower Lord's disciple ever be seen as inferior to anyone? If that's the case, then the Myriad Flame Tower's rankings mean nothing, Su Zimo said, shaking his head. They're just a reference anyway, Shangguan Xian said with a grin. Even the tower itself wouldn't dare claim its list is perfectly accurate. But pride won't matter in the end. When the real battle comes, I believe you'll crush every ounce of their arrogance. Su Zimo waved a hand dismissively. He didn't care much for empty titles or fame. But since he had promised Bian Wenzhou he would see it through, he began to think ahead. Once he secured a place in the Chaos Fire God Realm's delegation, what would his next destination be? He was considering traveling to the Departure Fire God Realm, which, rumor said, was now ruled by water beasts. He wanted to search for the new blue men, and perhaps discover clues to the inheritance of the ancient water god Gongtu. That was the current plan, though he knew plans could change at any time. During dinner, Su Zimo suddenly remembered something. He turned to Bien Wenzhou and asked, "Did you handle those black-clad men from this morning?" "Mostly," Bien replied. "A few slipped away, but they won't be a real threat." "No news from Blade Tyrant yet?" Su Zimo asked. "We did find some traces before," Bien said after a moment of thought. "But they disappeared almost immediately. I have my suspicions, though I have no proof, and I'd rather not be right." "Let's hear it," Su Zimo said. "I suspect the Chaos Fire God Realm is protecting Blade Tyrant," Bien said seriously. "Why do you think that?" Shangguan Xian asked, frowning. If the Chaos Fire God Realm truly had ties to Blade Tyrant, they would have sought revenge for him already, but there had been no movement so far. "They want to test your strength, young Master Su," Bien explained, "because they can't see through you. Someone they can't control is a problem for them. That's why, even when the referee cheated and placed you against Spectral Prince, no one stopped it. They wanted to use Spectral Prince to see how much of your power you'd reveal," Lu Huahua said, suddenly understanding. "Exactly," Bien nodded. "And deep down, they're all hoping Xiao Anshan wins. Otherwise, given how important this competition is, if anyone had really manipulated the matchups, the fire domain would have erupted in fury already." Su Zimo laughed. "Forget Spectral Prince. Let your fire ancestor himself come at me. I'd like to see what he can really do." "Careful, young Master Su," Lu Huahua said nervously. "You can't say things like that here. If the wrong person overhears, we'll all be in trouble." She glanced around cautiously, and when she saw no one paying attention, she finally relaxed. Su Zimo smiled faintly. He was only telling the truth, though few would believe it. He wasn't yet a sage monarch, only a newly ascended supreme saint sovereign, but with 2 life-death souls supporting him, and his laws tempered again and again, he truly wanted to test how high his power ranked within the saint sovereign realm. Because the conversation had turned to the Chaos Fire God realm, the mood among the group grew heavier. For people like Lu Huahua and Zhang Hengji, the Chaos Fire God realm represented the pinnacle, a height they admired but dared not challenge. Bien Wenzhou, however, laughed it off. "No need to worry. The Chaos Fire God realm is still a supreme institution. They wouldn't resort to dirty tricks. At most, they'll probe us a little. Once the competition ends, if young Master Su wins, all their scheming will fall apart anyway." Everyone nodded in agreement. After dinner, Su Zimo returned to his room. The further one progressed in cultivation, the more one could sense the vastness and immensity of the world. The higher your realm, the farther you could see, and the more you realized how much there was still to learn. That was why so many great cultivators would seclude themselves for hundreds or even thousands of years. To them, such spans of time were as brief as the blink of an eye. In the God world, Su Zimo meditated before the Blue Man. The closer he drew to the Blue Man's presence, the clearer his comprehension of the heavenly Tao became. Another silent night passed. After the 2 rounds of eliminations yesterday, only 20 competitors remained. Today was the final day of the competition. By the end of it, the top 3 would be chosen to represent the Chaos Fire God realm and journey to the ancestral lands of the Chaos Fire progenitor. Su Zimo's name had spread everywhere. Wherever he went, people turned to look. "That's the one who killed Spectral Prince, right?" "Yeah. I missed yesterday's match, damn. What a mistake. I heard that sadistic Spectral Prince got tortured to death instead. That must have been glorious. Serves him right. I bet all my savings on him winning, and he lost that miserably. Good riddance." Voices buzzed all around. Su Zimo stood quietly beside the arena, ignoring the chatter. The match list for the first round of the day was about to be announced. Footsteps echoed. A man in a red robe, a Chaos Fire envoy, stepped onto the stage. His cold eyes swept across the crowd. Instantly, the noise died. After a moment of silence, the envoy finally spoke. "For the next round, the 20-6 elimination, we will not proceed with the usual one-on-one matches." His words sent a shockwave through the crowd. Changing the rules at the final stage? Some were confused, others thrilled. because what he described next was a battle royale. All 20 contestants would enter the arena at once. The fight would continue until only 6 remained standing. You could attack anyone or form alliances. It didn't matter, because the only rule of this match was, there are no rules. This is definitely aimed at you, Shang Guanxian whispered softly to Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled faintly. So they wanted to eliminate him ahead of time. For a power as vast as the Chaos Fire God realm, such a move seemed petty and narrow-minded, completely unbecoming of their supposed greatness. He lifted his head and looked around at the 19 other competitors preparing to enter the arena. Naive, he thought. If the Chaos Fire God realm really believed these people could defeat him, then they were living in a fantasy. Well, he said quietly, since you want to test my strength, come on then. Su Zimo stepped onto the stage alongside Shang Guanxian. On the way up, he told her, when the fight begins, just stand aside and watch. Don't do anything. You'll walk into the top 6 without lifting a finger. What do you mean? Shang Guanxian froze for a moment, then suddenly understood. No, she said. Let me fight with you. They'll all team up against you. No need, Su Zimo replied, shaking his head. They're nothing but a rabble. Once all 20 had entered the arena, the referee's shout of "Begin!" echoed through the air. But the furious battle everyone expected didn't happen. Instead, the 20 stood still, each watching the others warily. Attacking first meant exposing yourself to a dozen sneak attacks. Everyone, said a young man named Wang Guanglin, stepping forward. I think we should first take out the most dangerous person, then fight for the top 6 spots afterward. That's right, I agree, a burly man rumbled. One by one, eyes turned toward Su Zimo. As for Xiao Anshan, none of them dared to touch him, not when he had the Chaos Fire God realm behind him. Su Zimo, on the other hand, was the perfect target. No background, enormous strength. The ideal scapegoat. My friend, Wang Guanglin said with a smile. Why don't you step down on your own? No need to get hurt for nothing. What did the Chaos Fire God realm offer you? Su Zimo asked suddenly. At that, Wang Guanglin's smile froze. His eyes narrowed slightly. Don't be foolish, he said coldly. In a one-on-one fight, none of us could beat you. But if we all attack together, you'll die for sure. For that sentence alone, Su Zimo replied. You're already dead. Since the mask was off, Wang Guanglin didn't bother pretending. We'll see who dies, he barked. Everyone, attack with me. Whoever helps kill him. My spot in the top 6 is yours. That did it. The crowd erupted. 2 competitors gone in one move, him and Su Zimo, meant less competition for the rest. At least 12 of them charged forward, their killing intent flaring. Dragons roared. Tigers bellowed. The air shook with power so violent that even the void around them began to collapse. Kill! Someone shouted, and 12 combatants hurled their attacks at Su Zimo all at once. Su Zimo looked up calmly, his expression unshaken. A divine dragon surged from the east, flying straight at him. Su Zimo clenched his fist and threw a single punch. Boom! The dragon shattered into fragments of light, dissolving into the air. From the north, a sharp sword aura slashed through the sky. A swordsman rode his blade through the air, his aura like a burning sea of swords that filled the heavens. That's the young master of the Sky Mountain Sword Sect, someone gasped from the crowd. Su Zimo didn't even flinch. His right hand swept up a storm of spirit energy and swung backhanded through the air. Crack! The sword broke instantly, and its master crashed to the ground in a pool of blood. Stop your rampage, another roared. This man bore a colossal mountain on his back, its shadow blotting out the sun. When he lifted it into the air, the sky went black. Suppress! He shouted, sending the mountain crashing down. Thunder rolled as the immense weight fell toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo snorted coldly. He extended one hand. The wind and clouds themselves gathered around it, condensing into a vast, world-filling palm. He caught the falling mountain in that single hand, as easily as a child catching a toy, and hurled it back. The young man beneath it paled in terror. He tried to flee but couldn't move in time. The mountain crushed him flat. Another cultivator sat cross-legged in the sky, surrounded by floating formation discs. Endless runic light whirled around him, forming powerful formations. His expression was solemn. Radiance sealed. Destruction unleashed. Blades and swords converge. Threefold formation, heaven, earth, and man. With his chant, the three discs merged, releasing an overwhelming force that birthed a spectral sword and saber from the void, both falling toward Su Zimo like doomsday itself. Among the spectators, Lu Huahua bit her lip. Can young Master Su really handle all of them at once? Trust him, Zhang Hengji said quietly, though the tension in his clenched fists betrayed his worry. Kill him, Wang Guanglin shouted, charging forward. Su Zimo lifted his head and gave a soft laugh. Behind him, a colossal titan erupted into being, his heaven-shattering giant. In the past, its size had already been immense. But now, after Su Zimo's breakthrough into the Saint Sovereign realm, it had grown several times larger than its original colossal size. Its blazing eyes locked onto the spectral sword and saber. It raised its massive hand, raw, absolute power condensed in that motion, and swatted them out of existence. The formations shattered. The formation master screamed once before being annihilated along with his own technique. Wang Guanglin froze mid-charge, his expression twisting into fear. With a single punch and a single palm, Su Zimo had destroyed the combined assault of more than 10 people, as if brushing away dust. Kill! The heaven-shattering giant bellowed. The clouds above boiled and churned as the giant rampaged across the arena. It swung its fists like hammers, crushing one opponent after another. In the blink of an eye, the alliance of 12 was gone. 11 dead. Only Wang Guanglin remained, left alive deliberately, as Su Zimo had ordered himself. Su Zimo walked toward him step by step. Wang Guanglin took a deep breath, dropped his sword and begged. I was blinded by greed. Please, spare me. I swear I'll disappear forever. You'll never see me again. What did the Chaos Fire God realm promise you? Su Zimo asked, smiling faintly. I am not sure if he was really from the Chaos Fire God realm, Wang stammered. He wore a black cloak. He just said to gather others and kill you. Useless, Su Zimo said, taking another step. His hand shot out and crushed Wang Guanglin's skull. The arena fell completely silent. No one dared speak. His strength and ruthless decisiveness had frozen them all in place. Su Zimo grinned, looking at the few survivors still standing. So, he asked lightly, does anyone else want to fight? When Su Zimo spoke, silence swept across the arena. His earlier display of ruthless power had terrified everyone. No one dared to respond. Boring, Su Zimo said, shaking his head slightly. Just moments ago, he had eliminated 12 contestants in one go. Now only 8 remained. And since only 6 would advance to the next round, that meant 2 more had to be eliminated before this free-for-all would end. Someone else seemed to realize the same thing. While the others were distracted, he suddenly lunged, striking 2 nearby competitors and knocking them off the stage before they even realized what was happening. By the time they hit the ground, the referee's voice rang out. This battle royale is over. The next stage will be 6 contestants competing for 3 spots. The final 3 will represent our Chaos Fire God realm and journey to the Chaos Fire Progenitor's ancestral lands. The 6 remaining contestants' faces lit up with excitement. Among them, besides Su Zimo, Xiao Enshan, and Shangguan Xian, were Army Breaker Luo Ji and a young man named Zhang He. Army Breaker was the holy son of the Many Weapons God Sect, a formidable fighter ranked 3rd on the Myriad Flames ranking. Luo Ji, on the other hand, was the young city lord of Fire Beacon City. While talented, he wasn't particularly exceptional among these prodigies, and he owed his advancement entirely to Su Zimo. Had Su Zimo not wiped out 12 people, Luo Ji would never have made it this far. As for Zhang He, the crafty one, he had taken advantage of the chaos, pushing 2 people off the stage at the last moment to end the battle early. He seemed to be a rogue cultivator, unaffiliated with any major power, and not particularly well known. The next stage would be one-on-one duels. Su Zimo had already guessed that his opponent would most likely be Army Breaker. Knowing how shameless the Chaos Fire God realm had become, there was no doubt they would manipulate the matchups. Army Breaker was good enough to be top 3 under normal circumstances, but fate was not on his side today. Sure enough, after a brief rest, the match list was announced. Su Zimo versus Army Breaker. Shangguan Xian versus Luo Ji. Xiao Anshan versus Zhang He. The moment Su Zimo saw the list, he knew there was foul play involved. Even Shangguan Xian, usually calm, was uncharacteristically angry. The Chaos Fire God realm doesn't even bother hiding its shamelessness anymore. They must be frustrated, Su Zimo said with a smirk. They've done everything in their power, and still can't stop me. They just don't want Xiao Anshan to face you, Shangguan Xian nodded. More precisely, they don't want him to lose. That would shatter his Dao heart. Su Zimo chuckled. Because of his primordial flame God King physique, Xiao Anshan has been nurtured by the Chaos Fire God realm since childhood. You could say he's never lacked for anything: resources, teachers, protection. With such a strong backing, combined with his talent and guidance, it's no wonder he's been regarded as invincible among his peers. A flower grown in a greenhouse isn't much to brag about, Lu Huahua said indignantly. That's exactly why the Chaos Fire God realm wants to protect him from you. Shangguan Xian smiled. A wildflower may be trampled but will always rise again. A greenhouse flower, once broken, can never stand. Do you think the Chaos Fire God realm will pull any other tricks? Zhang Hengji asked worriedly. They shouldn't, Shangguan Xian replied. The matter of the Chaos Fire progenitor's origin is far too important. At most, they'll meddle with the pairings. In the end, it still comes down to true strength. The first match was between Xiao Anshan and Zhang He. Xiao Anshan stood tall in a snow-white robe, his long black hair neatly tied in a top knot. His eyes were calm, almost detached, as though nothing in the world could disturb his composure. Zhang He, on the other hand, was short and sly-looking, about 1.60 meters, with yellowish skin and shifty eyes. Even his gait was sloppy and unimpressive. Poor guy, someone muttered in the crowd. To face Xiao Anshan in the first match? That's bad luck. I'd say he's lucky, another laughed. If not for this, he wouldn't have made it this far. Around the arena, people chatted and placed bets. Other than Su Zimo, no one believed anyone could challenge Xiao Anshan. 3 moves, one spectator said confidently. That's all it'll take. Zhang He walked onto the stage and bowed politely. Xiao Anshan returned the bow. But just as he straightened up, Zhang He's expression twisted. He suddenly exploded into motion, lunging forward and striking at Xiao Anshan. Something small and dark shot from his hand, embedding itself in Xiao Anshan's shoulder. Despicable. A sneak attack. Shameless. Does he even deserve to stand here? The spectators roared in anger. Many saw Xiao Anshan as a role model, while others had bet heavily on his victory. When they saw what Zhang He had thrown, however, their expressions changed to shock. It was a seed of the Blood Demon Tree. The Blood Demon Tree was one of the most sinister life forms in existence. Wherever it grew, rivers of blood would follow. It thrived on death, its roots drinking deep from human blood. Once its seed entered a person's body, no matter how powerful they were, they would eventually be drained into a mummified corpse. Zhang He ignored the crowd's curses, smiling coldly. You were careless. From the moment we stepped onto the stage, we were enemies. Xiao Anshan said nothing. His expression remained calm. I hate people like you, arrogant, self-righteous geniuses, Zhang He snarled. I may not be as strong, but I have plenty of ways to bring you down. You walk the path of petty tricks, Xiao Anshan replied. True cultivation lies in refining the self, walking the righteous path openly. Then deal with the Blood Demon Tree first, then we'll talk, Zhang He sneered. By now, the seed had sprouted. Blood-red roots burrowed through Xiao Anshan's flesh, drinking his blood greedily as crimson branches spread across his skin. "You seem to have forgotten," Xiao Anshan said calmly, "that among us of the fire god race, nothing restrains would more than flame." He raised his hand, and golden fire erupted from his body. The flames burned with a radiant, divine heat. Within moments, the blood demon tree's roots and vines withered and turned to ash, the seed itself reduced to nothingness. "That's impossible," Zhang He cried out, horrified. "I've tested it myself. The blood demon tree is immune to fire." "You're mistaken," Xiao Anshan said, shaking his head. "It is only immune to ordinary fire. My chaos flame burns all things. Even the blood demon tree cannot withstand it." Zhang He growled, his face twisting in anger and humiliation. His plan had failed completely. With a snarl, he swung his right arm, and a blazing long sword materialized in his hand. Flames blazed upon the sword, burning the very air. Zhang He roared in fury and charged straight at Xiao Anshan. Xiao Anshan raised his right hand, spirit energy swirling around his palm. An overwhelming force erupted outward. Boom! Blasting Zhang He off his feet and hurling him across the arena. "Kill!" Zhang He howled, forcing himself up from the ground and lunging again. But each time he charged, Xiao Anshan struck him down. Though covered in blood, Zhang He kept struggling back to his feet, as if he were an indestructible cockroach. "I, Zhang He, have come this far not through anyone's help, nor by luck," he shouted, laughing wildly through his pain. "I've crawled my way up like an ant, shameless, cunning, willing to use any scheme or trick to claw my way to this realm." His entire body was drenched in blood, yet he still refused to fall. Xiao Anshan's expression softened slightly. "Whether you win or lose today, I must admit, I respect your spirit. But in my eyes, all things have their Tao. If you act without Tao, pursuing your goals by any means necessary, how are you any different from a beast? Then call me a beast, so what?" Zhang He spat blood and laughed madly. Xiao Anshan sighed. Spirit energy gathered at his right hand, forming an enormous palm that filled the sky. He poured half of his strength into the single strike. When Zhang He charged again, the palm descended like thunder. Boom! The explosion echoed across the arena, shaking the air. Zhang He's body was sent flying, crashing heavily to the ground. He tried to rise, but his body no longer obeyed him. "I have destroyed your cultivation but spared your life," Xiao Anshan said calmly. "This is not revenge. It is so that you may lay down your obsessions and learn what it means to live as an ordinary man. My meridians, my cultivation is gone." Zhang He sat there blankly, his eyes lifeless. Then his gaze filled with fury as he looked up at Xiao Anshan. "You cruel bastard," he hissed. Without hesitation, he seized his flaming sword and thrust it into his own chest before everyone's eyes. Xiao Anshan's face changed dramatically. He tried to stop him, but it was already too late. All that remained before him was a corpse. "Why?" Xiao Anshan murmured, confused. He truly couldn't understand why Zhang He had chosen to end his life when he had spared it. "I'll tell you why," Lu Huahua said bluntly. "You yap too much. Your lectures on morality probably annoyed him to death." Xiao Anshan turned to look at Su Zimo and his group, then actually walked over. "Please," he said sincerely, "enlighten me." "Enlighten you about what?" Zhang Hengji asked warily. "I spared his life. Why did he kill himself?" "I don't understand," Xiao Anshan replied earnestly. Despite his exalted background, he never spoke to others with arrogance. In Su Zimo's eyes, Xiao Anshan was admirable in many ways, principled, composed, and sincere, just a bit too detached from the world of ordinary people. "You grew up in the Chaos Fire God realm, didn't you?" Su Zimo asked. "You've probably never been outside its walls. Maybe you've barely even been to this Chaos Fire city." Xiao Anshan nodded. "How did you know?" "That explains it," Su Zimo said. "You don't understand people. You've spent your life learning lofty doctrines but never learned how to apply them. He continued, take Zhang He for example. He spent his whole life striving to become strong. He clawed upward, using every means, even calling himself a beast. Can you imagine how deep that obsession ran? That's exactly why I destroyed his cultivation, Xiao Anshan said, frowning, so that he could release that obsession. By doing that, you erased his entire life's effort, Su Zimo countered. Do you really think someone can just accept that? You didn't just cripple his power, you shattered his reason for living. You left him no path forward. He smiled faintly. You think what you think is what is, but it's really not. The line left Xiao Anshan speechless. He had grown up in the shelter of the Chaos Fire God realm, never knowing deceit or betrayal, never tasting the coldness of the world. Naturally, he couldn't understand the hearts of ordinary people. Thank you for your guidance, Xiao Anshan said after a long silence. Whether you are right or wrong, I am still grateful. But when we meet in battle, I will not hold back. Su Zimo didn't bother replying. Xiao Anshan bowed again. I have a feeling that, in the end, we will be the ones to fight for first place. As he walked away, the others couldn't help but think that, aside from being a little rigid, Xiao Anshan was actually quite likable. The second match began. Shangguan Xian versus Luo Ji. At the referee's shout, Luo Ji's expression grew tense. Gone was his usual composure. Ideally, he had wanted to face Zhang He. That would have been an even fight between weaklings. But facing Shangguan Xian, he knew he had no chance. Sister Shangguan, Lu Huahua said hesitantly, I'll have to trouble you with this one. Don't worry, Shangguan Xian replied with a faint smile. He won't walk off that stage alive. As long as Luo Ji lived, Lu Huahua would never be free of his grasp. Shangguan Xian was not someone who enjoyed killing, but she knew when it was necessary. She stepped gracefully onto the platform. Luo Ji was already waiting, trying to compose himself. Miss Shangguan, he greeted with a smile. Let's begin, she said coolly. The ethereal fire of the immortal spirit ignited in her hand, blazing to life. She held nothing back. Her attack came immediately and without mercy. Luo Ji's face changed. He dared not hesitate and summoned his 9 beacon flames, his strongest technique. 2 surging fires clashed in midair, roaring and devouring the space between them. The next instant, Luo Ji was sent flying backward like a rag doll. Damn it! So strong! He gasped. His expression twisted in disbelief. He had been utterly crushed from the very first exchange. Shangguan Xian's power was far beyond anything he'd imagined. IADM- he began. But before the word admit could leave his mouth, Shangguan Xian's palm was already upon him. Her figure, elegant and ethereal like a phoenix soaring through the heavens, carried both grace and dominance. Her jade hand pierced through the layers of space and pressed against his chest. Boom! Blood spurted from his mouth before he could even fall. Then Shangguan Xian seized him, hurled him into the sky, and unleashed the full force of her immortal spirit flame. The fire rose like a column connecting heaven and earth, engulfing Luo Ji entirely. His screams echoed through the arena, haunting and pitiful. When the flames finally died down and silence returned, all that was left was a charred skeleton tumbling from the air. Shangguan Xian, victory! The referee shouted. The crowd buzzed in awe and shock. As Shangguan Xian stepped off the stage, Su Zimo chuckled. You've just made Fire Beacon City your mortal enemy. We'll be leaving the Chaos Fire God realm soon anyway, she replied with a carefree smile. Why should I care?